Wrestling will come back tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow wrestling will live again. But today it's fucked. Today it's shit. But tomorrow's only a day away. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to an all-singing, all-dancing edition of the Jim Cornette Experience, where we review community theater, high school drama class auditions, and way off-Broadway musicals where the occasional wrestling match breaks out. And joining me, my co-host, the Busby Berkeley of broadcasting, the Bob Fosse of podcasting, the Florence Ziegfeld of French toast, the George Gershwin of Jersey, the great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here once again for another spectacular pleasure to be here with the Andrea McArdle of wrestling podcasts.
Sing it, baby. Sing it to me. We're going to all it was like the goddamn episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer where they were all under a spell and could only communicate in song. Actually, no, come to think of it, it wasn't like that, because that was a pretty good episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But I digress. It's been one of those weeks, Brian.
And that was just yesterday.
Actually, it started the day before yesterday. That sounds like the preamble of a horror movie. The day before yesterday, I get up early in the morning. As you know, I'm an aged man now. I'm almost a senior citizen. I've already got the AARP card, and I got to pee early in the morning. I get up with the chickens. Sometimes, after we get finished, the chickens go back to sleep, but I'm still up. But I got up early, and I hate this time of year because when I get up early in the summertime, it's still light outside, and the birds are chirping. And, you know, maybe Bertie Sanders is in the garage, and it's just so nice outside. And you watch the squirrels and the chipmunks play, and the raccoons and the Oompa Loompas and all that type of thing. But this time of year, I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. It's dark. It's pitch fucking black outside. And so that feels wrong. So usually what I do to start my day is I'll come up in the office and I'll get on the computer and I'll check to see if anybody has emailed me of an important nature. I can't answer all of them, but I can look for the, names of the people that it might be crucial. And then I check the Twitter to see if I want to retweet anything or take the piss out of somebody, as they say. And I'll check the news, both world and wrestling, to see if everybody's still okay, or if hopefully some of the people that I don't want to still be okay aren't. And then I go on about by 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm going on about my day, and I don't see a lot of this stuff anymore. But that helps bridge the gap between the darkness and then the sun comes up, and then you feel like you ought to be going ahead and doing something. And then I don't see the computer that much because I'm fulfilling the orders at Cornette's Collectibles, and I'm doing various other things that I have to do without living in front of a fucking screen like everybody lives their life. Tuesday, I get up, the internet's out. God damn it, it says I got no internet because I click on all the stuff and it won't connect. I know how to do two things. Unplug shit and plug it back in, or press the button on the front of the computer thing and it goes off and then you turn it back on. Neither one of those worked. Now I've got to get an expert. But it's fucking 6:45. I can't go wake Stace up, of course. So I'm fiddling around trying to figure out what to do with myself. And it threw my whole goddamn day off. Because it's like too early to be really physically active. But at the same time, I'm not making any progress. So finally, I broke down. Sometime later, I went down there. I said, the internet's out. She's like, it went off at midnight. I'll fix it later. All right. So I go on and go. About 9 o'clock rolls around. I go to the post office, get a bunch of shit shipped out, come back, and everything's fine. But that threw me all off, and that made me, the point of all of this, Brian, did you think I was going to come to one eventually? The point of all of this is 15 years ago, I wouldn't even have looked at this thing because I wouldn't have had it. Now, it throws my whole day off when I don't have a computer and access to the internet. We make shit invaluable to us just because we get used to it. And then we think we need things that we don't really need. I didn't have a goddamn, I didn't have a computer till 2009. Stacy did. I didn't have one, didn't need one. Didn't want one. Finally, when we get the website, I got to have a computer. I didn't have email until 2009 for the same reason. I didn't tweet. I was on Twitter because she set that up, but that was usually if we were driving like back and forth to shows or something, and she was in a car for something to do, I would say, hey, tweet this. And she would do it because I'd never actually tweeted for myself until after I started this podcast. And it was sometime after, maybe 2014, 2015. And I already had 60,000 followers. And then I got it on the computer. So this is recent shit, but all of a sudden I'm freaking out because I ain't got my shit. And I'm we obviously you really don't need Twitter. Now we found out that most of the people on Twitter, I know there's real people out there because I've met some of them, but most of the people on Twitter are either fake, 42 different Twitter accounts, or Russian. Email, I see people that live on their phones and can't do without it. And the whole thing, does anybody that's not in business really need the internet to live their daily life? If you're just a retired person just poking around the house, or like you, Brian, just independently wealthy and free to do what you want, or just somebody that doesn't have to have the internet for business, why would you need the internet? What joy or service does the internet and the computer in your home bring to you that you could not have any other way, and that we already had before we got this to begin with? I ask you that question, sir.
Well, I could buy stock whenever I want, and I don't have to pay a broker.
Oh, well, now you're just using it as a cost-saving measure.
I wouldn't say that's...
Okay, that's business.
That's not business.
It's your fucking stock business.
Well,
who out there I'll just get on the internet and just buy my stock or whatever.
Millions of people, I'm sure, have various accounts on various things. How about
do you do your own plumbing too?
No, that's where I draw the line. That's where I draw the line. But I'd
be plumb crazy if I had bought my own stocks. So
okay,
there you go.
Research. If I want to research, let's say a wrestling thing, there are different databases with results. There are different pictures that are available. There's different people who have scanned programs or magazines or whatever it may be. So I'm using wrestling as an example, but you can apply that across the board. I could just walk into the vault. You could. I could do something similar. A lot of other fans who are collectors probably could. A lot of people couldn't. And actually, because of the internet, I think a lot of the people that, for years, the old school historians that tracked results have had an easier time of finding results that were lost to time.
All right, but you always got to bring all this back to wrestling.
Newspapers.com. I can go and access newspaper articles from the beginning of newspapers in various cities and various states and various countries. And again, I could tie it back to wrestling and say I could research articles that no one had, that no one knew about. You could research stories. But again, that ties into research.
Well, there you go.
Communication.
But back to what I said, if somebody wants to fucking research something, the general public that they need to know, not like you doing your deep research into the darkest recesses of the bowels of wrestling history, but if somebody just needed to educate themselves, everybody had a fucking set of encyclopedias and a dictionary. You don't know what a word means? Look it up in the dictionary. Don't look on the internet. They don't know what the words mean either.
For the record, I wouldn't have to go too far to research the bowels of wrestling history.
Right,
I think we're in the midst of it right now.
Well, there you is. And we're desperately in need of a colonic. But besides that, crack open your Funkin' Wagnalls, people. Instead of going to Facebook to find, that's why we've got the president we've got. More on that later. But people go to Facebook for their news or their background information instead of cracking open an encyclopedia like we used to back when people were a little bit smarter, or in some way gathering information from a responsible source instead of it being beamed into everybody's home, being manipulated by foreign governments. I'm saying when I'm retired, you will know because this computer will go off the deck. The Wi-Fi or the hi-fi or whatever it is floating around in my house, it's probably doing damage to my brain as we speak, will be shut off. And for the rest of my life, if I want to know something, I have libraries of information on a variety of subjects. I have encyclopedias and dictionaries, things written down, media that I can consume and educate myself on these things. And if I didn't have all this email shit, then I'd have time to call people on the phone or maybe write them a letter. When's the last time you wrote a letter?
I have not written a letter other than thank you notes to people who buy merchandise. I haven't written an actual letter to anyone in a while, but that's another example of where the internet's good. Communication. The ability to send a friend an email and get a response as quickly as they get to it. And converse that way, but and not have to eat up my time on the phone.
That indicates that you want to encourage the accumulation of friends and encourage them to stay in contact with you, which always leads to trouble.
You just said you'd have more time
consuming.
You just said you'd have more time to return phone calls and write letters.
Well, I would.
There was a version of you.
There was somebody I wanted to see.
There was a version of you at the beginning of the last century saying, why do we need a phone? Why can't we just go out and go to our neighbor's house and knock on their door?
That's the first thing. This goddamn phone business, that's the first major intrusion on your privacy at home.
Why do I need a radio? I have all these songs in my head.
No, normally, before the fucking phone, you could go to your home, and unless somebody came pounding on your door, you were unmolested by the outside world, and then you had the option of not letting them in or not. Ever since that fucking phone got stuck in, it's been a downhill slide ever since. Mama Cornette used to be like that. I literally, even when I was a kid or when I'd come back to visit, no matter what era it was, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the phone in this house may not ring for 2 or 3 days. And then suddenly it would ring twice, and my mom would say, well, who the hell can that be? Why can't people leave me alone?
Was it typically someone she actually wanted to talk to, or was it ever just a complete, who is this?
No, yeah, well, actually, I will say for the most part, no, anybody that she didn't want to talk to wouldn't have the guts to call Mama Cornette. But every once in a while, she'd get a salesperson, and she'd give them a very stern tongue lashing that she was not interested and that they'd best take their calls elsewhere and remove her from any type of marketing list that there may be. Anyway, speaking of calling people on the phone or writing them a letter or removing people from marketing lists, folks, if you've been a customer of Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com, do not feel the need to do any of those things, because I'm proud to announce that after diligent work, everything that has been ordered through the morning of Tuesday, October 20th, will be in the mail or already has been shipped by Saturday, October 24th. We have battled back on this thing, got a lot of stuff in the mail this week, and we are ready to take your purchases. Remember, Christmas is coming and quicker than we think. And with delays from every angle, get your order in early. I say this every year. This year more than ever, I do not want to be coming down you people's chimneys on Christmas Eve. Whether it be T-shirts, burger towels, thank you, fuck you, bye, or Cornette face masks. Whether it be the books, the pictures, the DVDs, the incredible deals, the low prices and the high quality, JimCornette.com. Click on collectibles, feast your eyes and fantasize, go to town. Spend money and plenty of it, because I can handle it. I can take a big order this week. We are almost caught up for the first time in a long time, so give me a big one, baby. I can take it. All right, I probably buried myself here. What do we got? I got an email about one of your favorite shows.
Oh. What is that?
You turned me on to the, as the kids say, to this program. Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Now I watch it, they're just running them like potato chips on Vice TV. That and Dark Side of the Ring keeps Vice in business. And I don't care if I've just seen it yesterday. I watch them just because I want to say right here, there is nobody better on any television program as an ensemble cast. I always was a Seinfeld fan, but I'm sorry, they winked at me a time or two. Jerry knew that we knew they were all silliness. These fucking guys don't break character. This fucking cast, you can tell most of the shows what makes air is probably in some cases 50% or more improv when they're doing it. They're into who they are, and they don't fucking ever disappoint you with who they really are as people, and you believe their performances. And Danny DeVito was a wonderful addition because an actual name at the time when nobody else was. I guess good old Sweet D got on network for a little while there, but that show kind of sucked.
She was on Curb Your Enthusiasm, too. She played the sister of Cheryl.
That's right. Yes, but we didn't know that. But anyway, point is, Ed DeVito was perfect as a star, but he blended right in. You believe this, it's so fucking funny, and they don't give a shit. But anyway, so you turned me on to this program, Brian, last. You said it was like Seinfeld on crack. Love the show. It's being recast. Did you hear about this?
No, what do you mean?
Well, all the stars now, Rob McElhenney and Charlie Day and Glenn Howerton, they're all too big and too big of a stars and to go through the TV thing again. They're moving on to the movies. So they're recasting Always Sunny in Philly. They're going to keep the same parts. They're just going to get different people to play them all, because all these people are moving on. They become bigger stars. And actually, it's going to move. I bet you didn't know this either. It's going to move to the TNT network. So they're doing a cross promotion. This, according to what a Cult of Cornette member named Jason wrote this email and told me all this news. And he's a Hollywood reporter, he says. So this is all the scoops. So the recast Always Sunny in Philadelphia on TNT in a cross promotion with their other darling product, all petite wrestling, is going to be some recasting. Charlie, right? Charlie will now on Always Sunny will be played by Orange Cassidy, because he's always high on spray paint. He's mostly illiterate, and his best job is smashing rats. Frank no longer played by Danny DeVito. No, Frank will be played by Shahid Khan.
Smashing rats.
The questionable at best financier with hands in everything, whether it's legal or not. Dennis will now be played by Tony Khan, the entitled cunt who's done nothing on his own and who probably has a sex dungeon and lives off his father's success.
Awful.
So we're going for some typecasting in some of these areas here. Wait a minute. D will now be, actually, how they change sometimes the genders or the races or whatever of the character, update them. D will now be a man and will be played by MJF, as they're both the only real heels on either show. This was written before yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say, after yesterday, maybe MJF should be played by Charlie Day, or should be Charlie Day on the show.
Moving on. Mac will now be played by John Moxley. They both act idiotically macho.
That's funny.
And in 12 more years, in season 13, Mox will announce something we all kind of knew all along. Those of you who watch the show will understand that. Rickety Cricket, former boyfriend of Dee Reynolds and a recurring character on the show. It was a shame they made him quit being a priest, and he turned out to be a disfigured crack addict burned in a fire. Rickety Cricket will now be played by Jungle Boy. He hangs out with bums. You kind of want to root for him, but you don't really know why. The waitress.
I'm already wondering. I already figured out, I think, who the brothers will be, but go ahead.
Well, wait a minute. The waitress. The waitress role will be shared. Remember how, like, when we used to have the child actors and they couldn't be on a set very long, so you'd have twins and they'd each play the same baby on it. Well, it's kind of like that, only of age. The waitress role will be shared by FTR. Because they showed potential early, but their careers were eventually destroyed by other idiots without any compassion. Artemis, a little heralded character on Always Sunny. Artemis.
She's great.
Will be Brandy, because how have they made this many episodes of TV and she's still this easy to forget about? The McPoyles.
There we go.
The McPoyle brothers will obviously be recast by the Young Bucks. How can it not be? Two inbreds who jerk each other off while one goes bald and the other is a unibrowed cunt.
All right.
Mac's dad, Luther, you'll recall Mac's dad, Luther, has been in prison most of the run of the show for murder and various things, and he only gets out every once in a while when he swears revenge. Luther, Mac's dad, will be Arn Anderson because they're the only believable badasses on either show. Bill Ponderosa. Bill Ponderosa is now Chris Jericho. Fat fuck cokeheads who are in denial that they are has-beens.
Wow.
That's going to be a stretch for Chris to be able to play that part. That's nothing like, no, come on now.
What do you mean? You're the one who just said it.
Become a method actor to do stuff like this. And finally, playing the late lamented Maureen Ponderosa. You'll recall that she is Dennis Reynolds' ex-wife who got a large settlement and then had plastic surgery to become a cat. Maureen Ponderosa would be played by Jake Hager. He's just a big he's just a big pussy who fucked Tony Khan. Remember, he's Dennis a couple of times and gets a steady paycheck for years. Well, there you have it. The new cast of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia moving to TNT drama. And also, Jason mentions he's from out in Utah. We should try out the southwestern version of biscuits and gravy. They use Italian sausage, and instead of biscuits, they use cornbread. Now, that might be, as a native Tennessean, he says, living in the Southwest for decades, I'd say, it's good shit, pal.
Hey, what are your favorite episodes of Always Sunny?
Oh, God, my favorite one of all, The Nightman. The fucking
Which one? The first one where he debuts it?
The first one where they did the whole thing, yes. Okay. And then not when they actually did, yeah. But anything. Especially when... Remember when they did the episode that focused on Rickety Cricket? And he decided to give up smoking angel dust and PCP and got a job with his father and proved his brother wrong and met a girl and fell in love and finally decided to marry her, and they were making out in front of the fucking factory where his father ran that they worked, when his father and his brother come up and said, what the fuck are you doing? And we've had the whole episode has been a fucking PCP nightmare. He really did take the fucking drugs in the bathroom and imagined everything else, and he's there fucking French kissing a goddamn German Shepherd off the fucking street. It was exciting television.
The episode that hooked me was the one where Dennis and Frank and Charlie, well, really Frank more than anyone, get a police car and decide they're going to be policemen. And then Charlie wants to become Al Pacino, so he starts doing Serpico. And then eventually at the end, he tapes Dennis and Frank and he goes to the police station as Serpico to hand in the tape. And the woman behind the desk is like, what's this? He's like, it's intrigue, the likes of which you've never heard before. And she goes, the Spin Doctors mix. I taped over the Spin Doctors mix. That's one of my favorites. The one where they try out for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's a good one.
You're the baseball fan. The Wade Boggs is who the player. The Wade Boggs challenge. That was fucking great. And plus, anytime Frank has sex in the dumpster with Artemis.
The one where Frank is auditioning models and Dennis wants to be one of the models and is walking down this phony runway in the bar. And Frank throws kitty litter in his eyes. And he goes, why did you throw kitty litter in my eyes? Frank says, anything can happen on the runway.
Hey, okay, remember Frank buys the interest in a fucking beauty pageant to hit on all the beauty contestants, and then finds out he's bought one of those Little Miss pageants, and they're all 8 years old. And he's fallen and smashed his face in, so he's bleeding profusely from the nose, so he stuffs shit up both nostrils, and his face is becoming a fucking swollen mass. As he comes out in a tuxedo, he looks like Danny DeVito as the Penguin instead of Danny DeVito as fucking right. Frank Reynolds. And he fucking MCs the program while telling all of the mothers in the audience that he doesn't want to have anything to do with their pretty little girls in a sexual way. Anyway.
And Nightman's the same episode where Dee's dating the rapper. Right?
Yes, that's the subplot.
That is one of the great episodes of all time. That is.
Are they paying us to put them over like this?
They should be.
We need to stay in a good mood because it's a musical comedy episode here of The Experience, and a variety show episode. So we need to, but we shouldn't put people over like that so good unless they're. I'll tell you somebody that's paying us to put them over, and it's easy to do because they're good. The folks at Athletic Greens.
Yeah.
Brian, alone, how many hours and days out of your life over the past year or so that we've been involved with Athletic Greens, how much time have you saved by not having to go and shop and juice and clean up and do all that stuff when you just dump the mix in the shaker and fill it up with water and shake it and drink it, and you get everything formulated for you instead of getting rotten produce from a local grocer whose background you do not know?
I really go out of my way to try to ingest as much healthy stuff as possible to offset all the unhealthy stuff that I eat and drink. But I love Athletic Greens for the reason you just pointed out. All that cleanup, all that prep time, you juice and you get just a bag full of pulp. And then the bag rips and the pulp's all over the place and you have to clean it up. It's a pain in the ass.
It's terrible having pulp all over you.
With Athletic Greens, like you said, I put the water in this little bottle. I add the Athletic Greens. What I've been doing lately is a couple drops of the D3 into the Athletic Greens, mix it all up. I actually have it on my desk right now here. That is me mixing it, once again, shaking the bottle.
Shake it, baby, shake it.
I have about 9 ounces to go, but I love Athletic Greens, and it tastes great.
9 ounces or 9 inches? What did you say?
I said 9 ounces.
Listen here, I'm going to tell you what. I don't know why you keep yours on your desk. Stacy keeps ours in the kitchen right next to the refrigerator.
Well, I'm drinking
right there
this
where we eat and consume all of our other healthy products. But that's something you said before we went on the air. You chastised me because I mentioned that the Sprite Zero has been short in cans around here lately, and I finally found a store of cans that I was able to purchase and bring back to the castle. I've been on the 2 liters, and you said, well, what else do you drink? I said, I drink Sprite Zero. You said, well, you drink Athletic Greens? I said, it's not a drink. I do not classify Athletic Greens as a drink, more of a smoothie or a shake type of formulation that provides you the more nutrient-dense formula with the multivitamins and the multiminerals and the green complex, the probiotics, the prebiotics for gut health, the immunity formula, the digestive enzymes, all of that type of thing. And it goes the extra mile, as you mentioned, when you drop the vitamin D supplement that they provide with your first purchase when you go to athleticgreens.com/JCE. and you use that /JCE, you get free liquid vitamin D. You drop that in there. It's a potion. It's not just a drink that you just frivolously, willy-nilly drink because you're thirsty or for some kind of instant gratification. This is something you're doing to invest in your health. I would not call that just a mere drink, sir.
Well, I just drank down 9 ounces of it as you were saying all that. And I guess you're right. It is somewhat of a potion. Although I'm sure they don't want to say that.
Well, no,
but it's
potions
great.
Are good.
I got my cold water here. I mix the athletic greens into it. I shake it up. Sounds like that. And it's fantastic. Like I said, it tastes great. And more than anything, I make sure that each and every day I start it with all the important vitamins and minerals. And it's not a pill where they're heating all the vitamins and minerals up so you lose some of the benefits of these vitamins and minerals. It's in the raw in athletic greens, and
a more
fantastic.
Natural way.
That's right. In the raw.
In the raw. Well, whether you drink them in the raw or in your pajamas, it's no business of ours, ladies and gentlemen. But stay healthy. Support your gut. It even makes me a little more popular in the morning time, if you get my drift. Anyway, folks, right now, as we mentioned, a special offer on top of their all-in-one formula. A free liquid vitamin D supplement with your first purchase for additional immune support. Many of us, as you know, deficient in vitamin D. Some of us are deficient in vitamin brains. But you get vitamin D from the sun. Well, you ain't going to get so much sun in the wintertime. So boost it up. Keep your immune system up to date. And if you're looking to upgrade your multivitamin intake, one nutritional formula is going to help cover your daily nutritional basis, Athletic Greens. It makes getting as much high-quality nutrition as possible incredibly easy without the need to buy multiple products. So, make an investment in your health. The ultimate all-in-one wellness bundle. Support your immunity, gut health, and energy. athleticgreens.com/JCE. Why do they always want to slash me, Brian?
Well, so many people do. It's a popular thing.
It is very, very popular.
It started out with a small audience in Louisiana, and it's grown now to be a mass following. We want to slash JCE.
Hey, look here. The programming we're doing next week is going to change because we are adapting. We're agile, mobile, and hostile, and we're adapting to the schedule. People are wanting us, after we previewed the Hells in a Cell matches, where they've got 18 Hell in a Cell matches on the same show, including the girls, midgets. I believe Dalmatian puppies are going to engage in a pre-show Hell in a Cell. Anyway, we're going to watch this fucking fiasco. Is this right? Yes. I'm asking you. We're going to watch it. Yeah. Well, see, you got quiet there because you're the one that's talked me into this. You didn't want to take ownership of it in public.
I didn't.
Right. So that's this coming Sunday night, October 25th. So we're gonna watch that program on Monday, because I can't stay up that late, and we're gonna tape the program, the drive-through, where we review that program, and we're gonna get the drive-through out on Tuesday, so it's topical. Is that correct?
Indeed, with some questions and songs as well.
Yes, we will have, because it's a musical program. We're just going to a variety show format. And Topo Gijo will be here soon. And then we're going to have the Chinese acrobats of Taiwan. And folks, we're going to follow that up with Zamfir and his pan flute. But yeah, so next week, drive through on Tuesday, we'll review Hells in a Cell, oh, Hell's Bells. You know what helps with that, Brian? I'll tell you exactly what helps with pain, whether it's in your head, whether it's in your feet, whether it's in your butt, from your nose to your toes. The Omax Cryo Freeze that's been insanely popular on the program here for relieving joint pain. And now Omax has launched Cryo Freeze CBD Advanced Joint Defense. It's a one-a-day supplement containing hemp-derived CBD and a clinically proven ingredient called NEM, not MNM, by the way, but NEM, that relieves joint discomfort and soreness in 7 days or less. Reduce aches and pains from sore muscles, joint overuse, and aging. Stay active. It helps with muscle recovery, improving flexibility, long-term joint health, contains no THC, whether that's a positive or a negative, a yay or a nay for the folks out there. But it's third-party tested. You get 100% premium quality that you can trust. And right now, you get a limited time offer, 20% off the introductory pricing on Omax CryoFreeze supplements like the Advanced Joint Defense, and the discount applies toward any product site-wide through the end of the month. Go to omaxhealth.com. That's OMAX health.com and enter the code JCE to take advantage of the savings. That's omaxhealth.com. Enter code JCE, 20% off. Omax CryoFreeze, Advanced Joint Defense, and site-wide. Folks, do not, under any circumstances, under penalty of imprisonment, let muscle soreness continue to be an excuse for not living an active lifestyle. You can go to omaxhealth.com and feel relief faster. I am relieved right now.
Hey, you brought up M&M before. We haven't talked about this, and I haven't heard what the status is, but a few weeks back, there was a rumor that Melina may be returning to the WWE. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know, because I don't know whether it's true or not. I guess where there's smoke, there's fire. I liked working with all three of those guys and girls. It was Joey Matthews, Johnny Nitro was the in back in those days, John Morrison, and Melina. They were great together, had a great fucking gimmick, looked good. I've always enjoyed speaking to Melina. I'm sure anytime I say something good about anything, somebody will come up with a videotape where she's wrestling the Invisible Woman. But I assume since somebody said it and she denied it, that's what everybody has to do until they announce it. So I don't have a problem with them bringing back some of their well-known and full-grown women from the past, especially after some of the. I saw a girl on one of these shows that little darling Dagmar would have towered over her. Look it up. Google her if you don't know. But I'm a fan of Melina's.
I was going to say, do you think she gets an unfair shake from people? Do you think people judge her from the past too much? I always thought she was better in OVW than she was in WWE.
Well, to be honest, I don't know that I've seen more than two or three things of her in WWE. So I'm just going on working with her in OVW and in seeing her at a few independent events here over the last several years. What did she do in the WWE? I've zoned out on that.
Well, it's one of those things where the M&M team.
Well, I mean, after they broke up.
Well, that's what I was going to say, though. M&M were great together, and then, of course, they're like, wow, she's great. Let's separate her from them. And then she just became a singles wrestler. From what I remember hearing, there was backstage heat with her and some of the other people working there. Was that ever anything you encountered in OVW with her?
Not that I recall. I don't, see, that's it. Most of the people in OVW in those days got along with each other. There was occasionally a few times you had to settle somebody down. But, it was more of a team atmosphere. I didn't have any problem, I didn't have any problem ever having her say, well, it doesn't work for me, brother. And the thing is, I concentrated more on her in the package of the team with Johnny and Joey rather than as a wrestler. She wrestled some because that's what she was here to train for. But I thought that they were a main event fucking level deal. Especially at that point when that was the heyday of the Edge and Christian as a team and the Hardys and, so I concentrated more on putting her with them and pushing them. If she was just going out there and doing single matches, and especially if she was getting beat in just a girls match on the card while she's part of my tag team champions, well, that's fucking stupid. But say a lot of people, I'm sure all the young aspiring girl wrestlers in that situation would like to be wrestling, which is where they don't think long term, because it's a whole lot easier to be a main event level attraction and get main event money when you're in a package like that than if you're just another girl on the card. So, which is the same reason why sometimes guys would that have a talent for tag team wrestling and have certain strengths, but don't click as a single, instead of being just a guy on the card, being a really good tag team. Except the problem there becomes now that since Vince poisoned everybody from using tag teams in main events, you can't. Tag teams in the territory days never made main event money like the singles did, because you were splitting the fucking check 4 ways instead of 2. A main event payoff between 2 guys, the promoters would still usually, at least they were supposed to, and in some fashion would, give the match the same amount of money, but they would split it between 2 guys. In a tag team match, they'd split it between 4. That's what we main evented the Superdome, the Midnight Express and I did, with Watts and also in the Scaffold. But we and the Watts show was the match within $6,000 of the record Superdome with Junkyard Dog and Michael Hayes and the Dog Collar. But we didn't get nearly the single payoff that Dog and Hayes did, because ours was split 5 ways. Watts, Dog, Eaton, Condrey, and myself. And then, of course, Watts took several more portions, I'm sure, because he was the boss. And, but anyway, nevertheless, that's just a lesson for some talent. If you get a chance to be part of a really good fucking team or unit, and especially for because now that there's so many girls matches, the girl that will stand out will be the one that doesn't wrestle, but is capable of being a 21st century manager type, and with a fucking team and an integral part of that team or person, single, whatever. That's where you're going to draw money with a woman that may otherwise just be on the card.
What did you think the first time you saw her do that split on the apron?
Loved it. That was, and plus she knew where the camera was too. I mean, that was usually the first 6 months when we get guys or girls in OVW, was reminding them when they did something cool, there were people on 3 sides, but the hard camera was on the one that no people were on. So do it toward the camera. But yeah, I mean, they just, they looked like someone from their, go back and, well, nobody can really go back and look at the OVW shows. You'd see the best booked television program in the 21st century of wrestling, according to some people back then. But you can't see it now because they've got it locked up. But M&M looked like they were who they presented themselves to be. They had a good look, young look. They had the fucking music. They had her. People, they did the paparazzi thing. They created an entrance. They had good matches that backed it up. Joey was the team captain. John was very athletic back then, even though he was green, but they got the point across. And they talked and looked like somebody. And that's what you try to reward with more. Well, it used to in the old days. But as soon as the comedy writers got a hold of them, they were like, well, let's break them up now that they just know what they're doing. They didn't want to sign Joey to begin with because he didn't have a contract at first. He's the one that put all the ideas, and it was the team captain, put everything together in a cohesive form because Melina and Johnny were both green. And they said, well, we'll bring Melina and Johnny up and put them with somebody else that we've got under contract already. I said, then just start from fucking scratch. Because then you've just changed the whole goddamn deal. So they signed Joey at least. And then they ended up caving his face in not shortly afterwards, as I recall. One of those goofy ladder matches.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, nevertheless, folks.
Hey, if I could quickly ask you at least one more question here on this show. I know it's not the drive-thru, but
all right.
Did you see something recently online about Charlotte Flair signing with a sports agency?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, coincidentally enough, somewhere in here, in all of my paperwork, I have an email from one of the listeners. And here it is from Jack. Jack. Hey, Jim, I just saw a random tidbit in the news that Charlotte Flair has signed with some sports agency. This was on the internet on some of the news sites. Apparently, this agency has represented pro football players for the past 4 or 5 years, but now they're branching out to represent athletes across multiple sports, and Charlotte is the first wrestler they've signed. This gives me cause to pause, as we will talk about in a second, but here is Jack's question. Since we know Vince would sooner be dead than allow wrestlers to unionize, what would you suppose his opinion would be on talents having agents that he might have to deal with? What do you personally make of this? I feel like as a promoter, you would despise wrestlers having agents, but I also think as a talent and as a person in general, well, thank you for calling me a person in general. Sometimes I'm a specific person. You would support this if it meant the wrestlers would benefit and Vince would have to squirm a bit more come contract negotiation time. Another question, if you feel so inclined, is there any way you could see that Vince might try to kibosh the idea of wrestlers having agents? Could he potentially refuse to deal with wrestlers that have representation and put the freeze on it that way, considering WWE's grip on the industry? I could imagine he'd have to tread carefully so as not to get in legal trouble handling this situation. Jack, I hate to break some news to you. You were right about Vince's reaction, but you're 20 years behind the times. Does everybody not know that there's been some guys since the 90s, since the Attitude Era, that have had agents? Is this not a widely known thing, Brian?
I thought it was. I mean, Barry Bloom is pretty well known, and he got introduced to wrestling, I guess, through Jesse Ventura in the mid-'80s. So, I mean, it's been at least since the mid-'80s that Jesse Ventura brought an agent into the WWF.
That dadgum Ventura. And see, actually, Barry Bloom was the one that I was going to bring up because obviously Jesse started it in that the lawsuit that he had where he ended up getting royalties. That's why that it was written in the contracts of future announcers that you would not get royalties from your announcing work, because Jesse, when he couldn't wrestle anymore because of the Agent Orange, as he told me one time personally, and that he suffered in Vietnam, he had the blood clots. I don't know whether that's true or not now with what all Jesse has said since then. But even in the early contracts with the wrestlers, it was written they were going to get royalties. That's how all those guys made all that money on the action figures and stuff in the 80s. But announcers had never been covered because all announcers had just been regular announcers. They didn't get royalties. And then Jesse becomes a talent, color commentator, etc., starts that trend. That was his lawsuit. Because it wasn't specifically covered, he ended up winning a significant sum in royalties. I can't remember how much, Brian, but it wasn't like tens of millions of dollars, but it was more than Vince wanted to pay. And so then, since then, announcers don't get royalties on that. But further to the point of the agents, yeah, that was Jesse. And he was in Hollywood at that point, too, and making movies with Schwarzenegger. And a few of the guys that got movie work in the late 80s and early 90s got agents. I don't remember them branching out to actually represent anyone in wrestling until the mid-'90s, the start of the Attitude Era. Do you remember any widespread use before that?
Widespread use? No. I mean, various guys had agents in different ways. I mean, technically, Cola Quariani was Antonino Rocca's agent, but it was very different. Yeah,
but and say when you go back,
Jack Pfeffer was an agent for a number of wrestlers. Yeah.
But as far as actual legitimate sports agents representing wrestlers, rather than it goes back to the dawn of time, and in boxing too, we find a Argentinian heavyweight and we'll push him and I'll be the manager and blah, blah, blah. Or if a guy broke you into wrestling, he would be your agent or manager, shoot manager or whatever in those days. But finally, when in the 90s, when the guys started making a fucking fortune, when Bischoff was spending Turner's money and those guys were getting those ridiculous contracts, Nash and Hall, and then it spread out to the Austins and the Rocks of the world. Barry Bloom was constantly talking I don't know. I'm sure he and Vince have had conversations, but at the time, the burden of dealing with Barry Bloom fell on Jim Ross because he was the vice president of talent relations. He did all the contract deals, obviously with input or direction or whatever from Vince on whatever he wanted to have input on. And so JR had to be the one. So the worm turned. JR must have felt like he was a pretty good agent because then when JR needed an agent, he hired Barry Bloom. I mean, I can understand. As far as wrestling, yeah, in the territories, nobody would have had a fucking agent because they weren't going to give up 10% of their fucking money or whatever the percentage is to book themselves. And that's what I hate about modern wrestling. Everything else got fucking big business, and so did this agent horse shit. If I can't fucking talk in the wrestling business to the guy that's going to be hiring me or booking me and make my own deal, it's not a place I want to go. But having said that, if I'm getting into television and movies and people are trying to hire me for acting or all these other things, and that's something I want an agent because I don't know anything about that. And you should have someone representing you or whatever. Maybe instead of getting agents, sometimes some of the guys need a financial advisor more than an agent. But
it's funny too that Jim Ross ended up hiring Barry Bloom to be his agent.
Yeah, of course, because better to have him on inside the castle pissing out than outside pissing in, right? But anyway, yes, I think I've always thought it was ridiculous, the idea of a wrestler having agents when talking to a wrestling promoter and a wrestling booker about how they're going to be fucking used or whatever the fuck. If you can't do that business on your own, you don't need to be in the business. But now that the WWE has got to be such a big business and it's so fucking goofy and they've got contracts that are written with every clause and loophole and whatever the fuck, you probably ought to have an agent, an attorney, a goddamn staff of 15 to figure it out because you're going to get fucked some kind of way, which is another reason why I hate the modern wrestling business. You can't even do your own deals anymore. Well, you can with every other company in the world because they don't matter. So anyway, but yeah, and you are right. Vince never wanted to deal with any agents. Nobody wants to deal with a fucking agent if you're hiring somebody, which is kind of the idea of the wrestler hiring them. But I just hate that wrestling has become such a big fucking clusterfuck. It's like Hollywood now too, that you have to have people representing you to get booked into fucking Louisiana or whatever.
There are guys that are agents for indie wrestlers. Did you ever run into that with like Ring of Honor? Like Bill Behrens, isn't he like an agent for a bunch of different guys on the indies, or at least he was?
Well, yes, but Bill was fun and pleasant to deal with, because he understood the wrestling business, and it wasn't like we were doing fucking. I've signed Jay Lethal with Bill Behrens, and it was a very easy and pleasant experience, and everybody was honest with everybody, because Bill was doing that to help, especially a lot of the guys on independents, especially in his part of the country, but that. It's hard. Bill is a huge detail person. I don't know how Bill Behrens has the energy and has had for the 30 years that I've known him to keep up with all this shit. He must never sleep, but he's on top of everything. And as Vince used to say, if you ask him what time it is, he'll tell you how to build the watch. But he would, instead of all these individual guys having to deal with these numerous independent promoters and keep track of all these dates and everything, he was helping these guys get more bookings and keep them straight. It wasn't like he was negotiating any goddamn 6-picture contracts at, fucking MGM. So, when there's not that, he knew the wrestling business and was happy to talk to the promoters and help the guys because he could help them understand, hey, you can get a better deal like this, or don't let this guy treat you like that. But there was not, hundreds of millions of dollars on the line. But Bill's, hey, a wrestling agent, because that's what I was going to say. If your wrestling agent that's dealing with wrestling people for you has 30 years of experience in and around the wrestling business, that's fine. But when your wrestling agent starts trying to negotiate a motion picture deal, or what I'm saying here, wish all the best for Charlotte, but does she have to be the canary in the coal mine? The first wrestler they've represented, they've never talked to any people in the wrestling business and they're going to start by negotiating with the WWE. I'm just, that perks my ears up a little bit, but I hope everything works out for the best. But I'm sure that they could probably negotiate a wonderful contract for her if she was going to play for the fucking Chicago Bears, because they've represented a bunch of football players. But I'm just trying to figure out why they're getting into wrestling and she's their maiden voyage.
The guy they hired to be the president of WWE, he was an agent, right? Nick Khan?
I believe so. For
CAA, yeah.
Was he even a sports agent, or was he a movie star agent type agent? Isn't CAA actors in Hollywood?
I think he was television.
Television? You know what? Well, I guess all I've got to say is I need to call up and make an appointment with my doctor to get my oil changed and then go over to Valvoline and get a good colonoscopy. Stick to your fucking specialties, people.
All right.
Oh, there you have it.
There you have it.
All right. Anyway, I'll tell you one thing. Regardless of what the sport is, Brian Last, regardless of what the professional or sport is, regardless of who's representing who, there's one way that the Cult of Cornette listeners out there can make big money. Can you guess? MyBookie. If you're betting on the NFL, if you're betting on college ball, if you're betting on, are they playing the World Series this year?
Yeah, right now, actually. We're in the midst of it.
I heard something about that on TV. I don't really keep up with that because I don't watch baseball. But whatever they're playing, or if you want to bet on any kind of odds of whether these agents will represent Charlotte Flair well, go to MyBookie. Thousands of lines available on all your favorite sports and events. You can turn game day into payday with MyBookie. Back the big favorites. Just consider the option of putting a couple in a parlay. I've had a couple in a parlay every once in a while. There was this couple from Cleveland.
Behind the dumpster.
No, that was Greenville. But anyway, I believe it was Arnold Finster anyway, nevertheless, consider putting a couple in a parlay for a bigger payout. Parlays make meaningless games exciting, but more importantly, they give you a chance to turn ordinary bets into real money makers. Don't forget the underdogs. The thing about the NFL, underdogs are never really dogs on Sunday. Sometimes they're cats, but every team truly has a chance to win, and you do too. Game spreads, championship futures, player prop bets. It's never too late to get in on the action. Turn your sports knowledge into actual cash in your wallet. And when you sign up at MyBookie, use our promo code JCE to claim a deposit match, dollar for dollar, all the way up to $1,000. You put in 100, they give you another 100. That's the way these things work. Promo code JCE. Claim your deposit when you claim your bonus when you make your deposit. Whether it be the stacked UFC cards, the presidential prop bets, we all know who we're betting on, and all the major sports and more. Sign up today. Begin your winning season exclusively at MyBookie. You know what I'm betting on?
What's that?
I'm betting on NXT don't do another show like they did last night. If they do, I may have to give up on them.
Wow, I didn't expect you to hate it that much.
Well, not after what I saw afterwards, but there's so much potential here, and it's just all so. I liked this week and we're talking about the October 21st editions of the Wednesday Night Wars, the musical variety comedy spectaculars. I liked this week. Instead of going and giving us 20 minutes of a girls' match or whatever, they give us something at the start involving some men. But they're doing the thing. Remember, every week I say, well, AEW leaves off most of the entrances, the introductions. They just go straight into action. Well, this week, AEW gave us a proper show open, announcer, billboard, everything. And they just, over on NXT, just jumped into it. But I thought the opening match was going to be Velveteen Dream against Kushida. And I was about to say, well, I need to make some time up. But here, Ciampa jumped Velveteen Dream from behind, and I find out he's in the match, and it's a three-way. So I'll watch it now. Can you explain to me, Brian, why the Velveteen Dream has gone from Prince to dressing like Devon Dudley?
I can't explain that. He had a cast on his hand as well.
Well, I can explain. They mentioned he's injured.
He has a very funny way of selling everything.
Well, we'll talk about that. And I don't know why his cast was unraveling into toilet paper. I'm not sure about that. But he used to dress like Prince and look like Prince and act like Prince. And now he's dressed in army fatigues, combat boots, and a fucking T-shirt or shirt of some description. Anyway.
Maybe they're trying to get him away from a highly sexualized gimmick.
Well, I don't know whether your gimmick is highly sexualized, but mine can go either way. It can sometimes be highly sexualized, and other times it can stay there and just hang out or sit around, whatever the case. Anyway, I loved especially the first segment of this because I thought, okay, they're doing something here. They're highlighting one of the only real stars they've got, Tommaso Ciampa. He's the only one wearing wrestling gear. He's the only one that looks like a fucking grown adult that's not on crack here. Kushida always looks like the airline lost his bag. I can't get over it. It's just he's a small child wearing tennis shoes and blue jeans. But I mentioned I could watch Tommaso Ciampa beat these two guys up all night because he was doing it well and creatively. They did some different shit. And he just looks like, so I'm thinking, okay, they're going to have him. It's a nice opening match. He's going to win this thing. They're going to get him over and move him toward another star. That's what I thought in the first segment. I did also note that Velveteen Dream he's trying so hard now to oversell that it makes him awkward to work with. Did you see what one guy grabbed his wrist and went to fucking just twist his arm, and he fucking oversold it to the point where the guy couldn't hardly get his arm twisted. And he's screaming at it. Anyway, this wasn't as bad as most triple threat matches because it was more of a showcase for Ciampa to be a badass. And except whenever any one of the other guys took over, Jesus, did you say Kushida at one point gave Tommaso Ciampa a head palm shoot off and Tommaso went with it? A bald guy. You can't even make the weak argument that, well, he had him by the hair. He just put his hand on the back of a bald man's head that was twice the size of him and said, go, and he ran into the ropes. I almost fast forwarded there. Fuck taking the Velveteen Dream's Death Valley driver. I'll say that also. Right on your fucking stomach. What the fuck? I noticed that with who is it? Bronson Reed's Samoan drop also. They're giving these guys each other these moves for fucking real. So anyway, would you like to hear in my notes exactly what I wrote 30 seconds before the finish?
Yes.
The only thing that made this match good from a business standpoint, it was good action. It was good for a triple threat, as I said. They did a lot of it well. But the only thing that made this match good from a business standpoint was it's making Ciampa strong. And 30 seconds later, the Velveteen Dream knocks Ciampa out with his fucking unraveling toilet paper cast, and Kushida pinned him, and the fake crowd roared. What the fuck? Even if you wanted to have Tommaso Ciampa involved with the Velveteen Dream, you can't figure out any way better to do it than to have Tommaso Ciampa get pinned by Kushida. All righty then. What'd you think?
I thought it was all right as far as triple threat matches go. I'm not a big fan of multiple man or multiple team matches, like one-on-one or, one team versus another. But I thought this had a lot of action. It was really good. I like Kushida better than you do, clearly, although you may have a point about his gear. The Velveteen Dream is just so bizarre. He's like a fish out of water with the way he sells. And I was surprised by the finish. But overall...
And not in a good way. Sort of like, not as surprised by the finish like when the Mulkeys actually beat the Gladiators on TBS, but more surprised by the finish like every time George Goulas won a match.
I guess, I mean, look, if they go into a program with Ciampa and Kushida, it could be something. I don't know why all three of these guys are doing something together.
I don't like Velveteen Dream, but I think Velveteen Dream is a bigger star than Kushida. At least he looks full grown, and they've used him, I don't know.
Kushida's better than you give him credit for, and I understand if you've only seen him in NXT, you may not have seen the best of Kushida. In fact,
does he own Trunks?
At one point, he certainly has owned Trunks, yes.
What about Boots?
I can't speak to Boots. But it's not like he's unique.
You can speak to Boots, but Boots won't speak back.
I thought Boots the Cat was killed a long time ago. But listen, he's not unique in the wrestling business as being someone without traditional wrestling gear right now.
Exactly. He looks like every one of these other little fucking kid, dumb fuck cosplay players. Instead of, he's not alone in the wrestling business. All right. This was very cool what they did next. The Undisputed Era backstage with Adam Cole on the TV monitor doing the promo in live time with the other guys. It wasn't their best promo. They didn't have a ton to talk about, but I liked the idea that, okay, we've established Adam Cole isn't there, but it was a cool visual. And they were still, of course, they talked about tonight versus Fan Dancer, so I wish they hadn't told me the match, because then I was kind of, I want to see them. I don't want to see Fan Dancer. But what'd you think about the cute little trick with the monitor, Cole on the monitor?
I thought it was all right. I haven't brought this up. I haven't asked anyone, including you. What exactly is that little hand signal that Undisputed Era do?
I don't fucking know.
It's like 2 fingers on one hand, 3 on the other, but what does any of it signify?
Go back and look at any picture of the Hardy Boys and Lita in from 1999 till 2004 or thereabouts. They're all sticking fingers up.
Yeah, the shocker. They're doing the shocker. I understand
No, they stuck all kinds of fingers. Sometimes it's 2 fingers like a gun, and other times it's hook 'em horns, and other times it's a finger to the fucking head. I don't know. There's fingers and signs and everything. I don't know why all these people do these things.
But the Undisputed Era have the Freebirds had the Freebird handshake. The Undisputed Era have a thing that they do every single time. I don't understand what it signifies.
I don't either. But it's just young people do these things, apparently.
Bobby Fish isn't that young.
Well, he's hanging out with the cool kids. And at least he can hang. He doesn't come in with a skateboard and say, hello, fellow kids. Like some people we know. Next up, Ember Moon beat somebody. You have any thoughts on this?
I haven't been a fan of Ember Moon, so I executed my Ember Moon rule, which means I don't have to watch Ember Moon.
Oh, now you're not allowed to just make up rules for no reason.
If a wrestler,
there has to be an instigation.
If I've seen a wrestler multiple times and there's nothing about them that interests me and I'm not really a fan of their work, I execute a rule in their name, which allows me to hit the 30-second fast-forward button at least 6 times in a row. Potentially another 6 times after that.
And then there you go. So Ember Moon beat somebody. Okay, then we go back to the locker room area, or backstage, as they all call it. Let's just give up any pretense. This is a sport, and we're not going to the locker room. We're going to the dressing room. We're going backstage, where the rehearsals are taking place. But anyway, Bobby Fish is limping. The rest of the Undisputed Era, minus Cole, who's not there, is helping him. He said he didn't see who it was. What the fuck? I remember when we needed armed, uniformed police security in the building to protect us from the fans. Now, apparently, the wrestlers need the security in the locker room area to protect each other from each other. How many wrestling programs from every company have we seen lately where somebody, over the last 3 months even, where somebody got jumped in the fucking locker room before their match? Do you have an exact count, or you just want to fucking estimate?
It's been a few times. I don't know.
What the fuck? Can anybody think of anything else? Anything else? He ran across the street to get a fucking energy drink and got hit by a fucking cab? That could actually happen. A more likely scenario than getting jumped in a goddamn enclosed room in the middle of a locker room full of wrestlers. You don't know who fucking did it. So now they're fucking with the Undisputed Era. Is this all as contrived and just overdone as it appears to me, or am I just picky that way?
Wrestling, to me, was better when we didn't have any backstage segments, where anything that happened in front of the camera, in front of the fans, and every now and then you were told about something, but there was no camera on the side of the road when Austin Idol discovered the 4 flat tires. He came back and he told you why he wasn't there. That's an example of how to do something that affects the matches on that card without actually seeing it. But now everything's backstage. If Austin Idol had 4 flat tires, there would be a camera in the back seat. There'd be a camera on the side of the road. There'd be a camera in a truck that passes by.
I can remember in all my years of producing wrestling television, we had fights in the backstage area on occasion that you would see that for some reason either the camera would be alerted or something would break loose from a pre-tape promo or whatever. But only one time did I do a ghost physical attack where the camera comes back and a guy's already laying there. The only time I can ever remember. And the reason we did it was because Ricky Morton's father, Paul, was going to come to a Smoky Mountain taping, and the heels were going to jump him and beat him up. And it was in, I think, a small town in Western Virginia. Paul lived in Nashville. He's going to come with Ricky, but he got sick. And Paul was in his late 60s, maybe 70 at that point. And he got sick, and he couldn't make the trip. And I'd already written it in the goddamn format, so Paul Morton, for everybody who's ever seen him, he was a referee in the Tennessee Territory for decades, and he'd been on TV everywhere, was like 5'4" or 5" and about 140 pounds. And I said, son of a bitch, Brian Hildebrand, get over here. And we put a different shirt on Brian and had him laying there, and his head was behind a bench in the locker room. And somebody was screaming, and the camera came from the announce desk and opened the door, and there was Ricky crying over his father laying there, and all the fucking baby faces wringing their hands and clutching their pearls. Ricky Morton's father has been attacked, and I think it was a Father's Day deal, too. That's why he was going to be there. That's the only time, out of necessity. How is it once in a while, like every few years, it may be possible for somebody to be jumped in the fucking locker room and beaten up by their goddamn... But come on. Anyway, I'm not going to belabor it anymore. The next match was actually, I believe, the match of the night from both shows. Austin Theory versus Bronson Reed. I will be glad to go look back after we talk about everything, but I didn't see a match from start to finish that made sense, contained a babyface and a heel, had good looking work from guys that were full grown and athletic, and at least got something over. Even if they're beating Austin Theory to death, at least for Bronson Reed's going to be a star. Does Bronson Reed have new music? I never noticed it being rotten before. Or have I just been zipping through the entrances?
I've never really paid much attention to his music, so I couldn't tell you.
God, it sounded fucking rotten. But anyway, as I said, a heel and a baby face, and 2 guys that look like fucking something. Austin Theory with that attitude, what bumps he's working hard, but not in an off-kilter, awkward, out-of-control, stagey way like Velveteen Dream. He's bumping like a fucking heel. And like a good heel. And here is what Austin Theory did. Go back and watch this. Anybody who's kept it on tape. Well, actually, you probably do because you want to hear me talk about it first and alert you on what to watch. Bronson Reed does Vader shoot-offs from buckle to buckle. Fucking rotten. You know what I'm talking about? What Leon used to do?
Yeah.
He'll grab the guy's wrist in the turnbuckle, and he will just pull him out and shoot him off all the way across the ring. without taking another step, without dragging the guy, without going with him halfway, without really shooting him off, just boom, so that he can gear all that weight up and come charging. And that was the weakest point in Vader's game, and that's what Bronson Reed was doing, but he did it to Austin Theory, and I swear to God, Austin Theory realized in mid-whip what he was doing and stumbled on purpose. It looked like stumbled and waved his arms a little bit where it looked like he was off balance to explain why he was going to end up in that fucking turnbuckle instead of this guy just flat-footed saying, go, go, go away. So, but Reed's good. He looked like a beast here. And as I said, Austin Theory put on a nice little heel clinic. I thought it was a little blah that they did once again an overused knock the heel off the ropes and splash him finish, but what a fucking splash it was, my God. But I don't know why everybody has to crawl up on the fucking turnbuckles in the corner and jockey for position for a minute to where you lose any semblance. This is actually not two guys cooperating with each other. As I said, I didn't mind Austin Theory doing a job here because Bronson Reed's a future superstar. But then Austin Theory challenges him to do it again. And fucking they start another match. And within seconds, Reed hits the stiffest Samoan drop I have ever seen in my life. Did you see the impact on that one? Holy fuck. I mean, and this was all well done. I don't know why they're doing a losing streak with a guy that's better than 90% of their fucking roster. But otherwise than that, this was fine. There was nothing wrong with this whatsoever. I don't know. Tell me what was wrong with it if you found something.
Well, the finish and the way they're beating down Austin Theory is what was wrong with it. He exudes charisma. He's good in the ring. He looks like a full-grown wrestler. Both these guys, I was watching this match, and I was just thinking, like, these two guys in there together, this would have worked look-wise, just appearance-wise, in the Irish McNeil Boys Club. This would have worked in the TBS studio. This would have worked throughout wrestling's television history.
It would have worked on Raw in the Attitude Era.
Yeah, they both look like professional wrestlers. They're really good. Austin Theory's really good, especially when you think about his age. I don't know why they're booking him like this. I don't know who he pissed off. That's the only thing I could think of.
Well, I've got some hope here because after they go to the break, they come back with the camera out in the parking lot, and he's got his bag and he's getting in his car and driving off, and he says, I quit. Possibly they will bring him back in a month with a new gimmick. Hopefully not a different name, but some type of, or something to, he's gone away and learned a new hold. He's gone away and got another advisor. He's something.
A, he doesn't need a gimmick. B, the way NXT is.
Well, I don't mean a gimmick. Yeah, I'm just a different look, a different outfit. He goes to the monastery and studies the monks. And I don't know, something to change his mindset and his outlook. I'm trying to figure out how to turn a negative here into a positive. Why would you beat the guy twice, have him slink off and quit on camera? They got to bring him back as something bigger and better, but natural, a natural extension where he's done it on his own. He's found something, or elsewise they're just making a jack off out of this guy.
It's NXT. He's going to come back with Robert Stone. You know what I mean? It's NXT.
Well, next on NXT, Pablo Escobar and the Lucha Suits took on Swerve, Atlas, and what's his name? And Escobar's team won. Could you flesh out the details on that one?
It was a 6-man indie match that I wasn't crazy about. That's all I could say. I said it last time. None of these guys have really interested me. So I tune it out. That's what happens when someone doesn't interest you on a wrestling show. You tune it out. When I did watch, it was just indie-rific. I really didn't care much for it.
And that's the thing. I like Escobar when I've seen him in a singles match. He looks like he knows what he's doing. But just they blend together in the group. And I saw, I think it was Swerve, jumped over the rope and did a handstand on the apron and flipped out onto the floor on his feet to fuck it. I was like, what the fuck? So anyway.
I will say, I think it was Swerve during this match. Both companies, AEW and NXT, I'm seeing more and more dives where
constantly.
I mean, it's nonstop, but more and more that look like the guy's going to really hurt himself. Not that he's going to hurt his opponent, but he's going to twist his knee or land on his head. more and more I'm seeing these dives. So I'm like, I mean, it didn't really look like he hurt his opponent that much. His opponent was waiting for him to do it. And it looked like he may have twisted his leg.
They banned the pile driver in the WWE that almost anybody can give if you know what you're doing, and absolutely anybody can take if the guy giving it to you knows what you're doing. But they let these guys dive constantly onto multiple people and from high places and just don't say anything. Okay. We found out on our weekly feature, Mr. and Mrs. Same Face at Home, that Johnny hates wheels. He hates to spin the wheels. Wheels have it in for him. And the wheel is going to get him in a buried alive match or a casket match or something. And this was so contrived and so phony. And I don't know why people are doing this or why they're watching it.
Really bad. I've really detested these segments. I did have one epiphany, though, watching this. You know, Johnny Gargano has an interesting mustache. And if you shaved off his beard and just look at his mustache, because it grows more in the middle than on the sides, he kind of has he kind of resembles Hitler. Next time you see Johnny Gargano, tell me he doesn't resemble Hitler. That's all I'm saying.
Well, unfortunately, in this case, Eva Braun is the only hope of the family because she's at least somewhat, well, she's better than he is. Anyway, next up, I'm going to institute a new rule. No heartwarming stories about a big, surly, but lovable lug and a plucky, determined sidekick being reluctant partners and becoming friends to battle the same underneath heel team each and every week, a.k.a. Drake Maverick and Killian Dane versus Everrise.
By the way, when we talked about the Ring of Honor stuff that you were there for, apparently a bunch of people got in touch with us. The tag team we weren't familiar with, 3.0, that was Everrise.
Yes. Yeah, well, it's been 10 fucking years, so I saw him once. What happened here?
Oh, I thought you knew. I have a Drake Maverick rule. I fast-forwarded.
Okay, very good.
Right to the end of this, I didn't even see what exactly he did other than he got disqualified. I heard the announcement, and then Killian Dane suddenly accepted him. This has been awful. This is terrible. Week after week.
It's not even these guys' fault because fucking Meryl Streep and Dustin Hoffman couldn't get this shit over because it's just rotten, stupid material. But then they go backstage again, and Roderick Strong is out on the floor, face down, out cold, colder than a banker's heart. Fuck me. Seriously? Somebody call the Florida Bureau of Investigation because these heinous, violent acts are just...
I think they're already investigating WWE because there was a list put out of the top places for COVID super spreaders. And
yeah.
3 of them were WWE.
Well, they need to be investigated for fucking COVID spreading and also for violent physical assaults in the locker room. That can happen. Nobody knows what's happened. What is this, an Agatha Christie novel where each one of them wanders off alone and then suddenly they don't come back and then they find it? It's so preposterous. How could this happen? And then once they go to the break, they come back. Now there's Kyle O'Reilly all by himself. They're supposed to wrestle Fan Dancer later in the program for the tag title. So Kyle says, fuck it, I'm not competing. And Birch and Lorcan get the tag team title match. Kyle gives it to him. Of course, you can see this coming a mile away. Who are they going to blame for doing these attacks? Obviously, Birch and fucking Lorcan. But in the meantime, now instead of the Undisputed Era versus Fan Dancer, where I wanted to see half the match, I liked Birch and Lorcan against the Undisputed Era, against Fish and fucking Strong. I don't like Fan Dancer under any circumstances. Now I give no shits about this main event. But speaking of no shits, up next came Zia Lee against Mildred Burke. At least it may have been Mildred Burke. I don't know because I fast-forwarded immediately when I saw that this was the girl that was smaller than little darling Dagmar. At least Dagmar had some thighs on her. She had some circumference. She had a low power base, probably a power lifter in her day. What the fuck? So they're having this match, and then Raquel Gonzalez comes in and laid out both of these girls and whoever the girl was on the fucking floor also, and cut a promo on Rhea Ripley. The physical part was good. The verbal part was not. Would that be your estimation?
There was a promo before the match where Xia Li was insisting she needs to win this match. She really needs to. And she's going against her friend Casey. And then she proceeds to lose in the match. And as I'm thinking, I wonder where they're going to go here, all of a sudden Raquel Gonzalez hits the ring and beats everyone up. So I still don't know where they were going with that.
Well, they're making good time, but they're hopelessly lost. So then Cameron Grimes was backstage. You know what? That's where the action is all backstage. Cameron Grimes in the back. He's doing a promo with one of the girl interviewers about Dexter Lumis. Mackenzie. That's right. The blonde from TNA.
She was in TNA?
When I went down there to fire Bruce Pritchard, she was.
Oh, no shit.
I always loved Cameron Grimes, and he adds a little life to everything. But now she gives him the stipulation. What was it? The Haunted House of Horrors match they're doing Halloween Havoc next week. Is that or Haunted House of Horrors Terrors or?
It was something like that. I don't remember.
Whatever
exactly.
the fuck it may be. And then Cameron Grimes gets scared, but he gets fake scared. Scared where he's trying to act scared. And he's standing in front of a door with a fucking big window. And Dexter Lumis pops in and just stares at him through the fucking window in the door. But he never sees him, and nobody acknowledges it. And then Cameron Grimes has to shrivel on off, muttering, this was rotten and phony, because it just couldn't happen and nobody would say these things. I mean... Was that cutting edge fucking cinematography that Dexter Lumis just stands and looks on the other side of this window and they're just ignoring him so that they don't see him?
I give him credit for holding that face for a minute or so. I really like Cameron Grimes.
I give him fucking credit for fucking staying on his program for more than a minute or so. Go ahead.
That's all I have to say.
All right, I really like Canyon. All right, well, I really like Timothy Thatcher. Thatch Can was coming up, and they managed to turn me off to this now. Here's what I wrote. I love these segments. Thatcher is so smooth. He does a good job of being an asshole, and you see him enjoying putting the pressure, and his shit looks legitimate. And then I wrote, and it's gone. The idiot, unknown, goof, stooge student that he had to demonstrate his fucking holds on, he cranks up on a front face lock. Then he cranks up on the guy on the arm when he's tapping and really fucking punishes him, which is the whole point of doing this, and this is what he should be doing. And then as he gets up, as Thatcher gets up and talks to the camera, the guy gets up behind him with mad face. When he turns around, he gets a fucking front face lock on Timothy Thatcher, and Thatcher can't get out of it. And he makes him uncomfortable, and he takes him to the corner, and finally Thatcher gets out of it. Brian, what should he have done if this would have been a perfect segment? If Thatcher had done what right then?
I don't know.
Take the fucking guy down, ride him, rub his face in the mat, have him bite a fucking condom and bleed from the fucking mouth, and then put something on him that you could believably say tore his fucking shoulder out, and have people run in, throw the X up, and drag the guy out screaming. That would have got Thatcher over. Instead, what they did was, after the unknown goof got Thatcher in a front face lock that he couldn't get out of, and he went to the corner and got out of it, then he said, oh, you think you're fresh, huh? Well, hey, and he gets a referee and sucker punches the guy like he would need to, calls for the bell, and by then I was so upset that they had done this. It had gone south that I fast forwarded to the end of the fucking thing. Actually, I fast forwarded past it. I don't even know what happened. How do you botch this up? How do you have a guy whose whole gimmick is being an old-time fucking hooker from the snake pit and likes to punish people and take advantage of them, and he's in there with a stooge, and the stooge gets offense, and the guy doesn't, and Thatcher doesn't kill him afterwards. He has to sucker punch him, and then he does whatever the fuck they did. How do you go that far wrong with something like that?
You know, for everyone who thinks we just kill AEW, and they ignore when we say good things about AEW, just note, we kill NXT too because it's a bad show. And there are guys we like you're pointing out here with Thatcher. I've been high on him too. And then they're used in a stupid way on this bizarre show that is just, it's in the ring wrestling, and then it's backstage segments, and then things you don't see backstage, and then at home with the Garganos. And then back here, Thatcher's Thatch Can, which has a different look than everything else on the show so far. And I didn't know where they were going with it. You know, it started out as one thing.
Where did it go? How did he beat the guy finally?
Shit, I don't even fucking remember.
Don't even remember, do you? There you go.
The guy looked like shit, though. I'm thinking they're not going to give this guy a comeback, are they?
It wasn't even like, let's make a new talent. Let's have somebody stand up to the bully. It was some fucking schlub that looked like he went to give blood and forgot to say when. And fucking, he got his hair cut at a fucking Deadhead show. All right, you're going to have to fill me in on one more thing, because the next match was the main event on possibly the worst NXT show we have ever reviewed, except for Tommaso Ciampa's one-man performance and Austin Theory versus Bronson Reed. There was nothing on this program that made a lick of sense or was attractive in any way. And then the tag team title was on the line with Fan Dancer versus Lorcan and Birch. Fan Dancer started doing their male stripper entrance, and I zipped to the finish where Lorcan and Birch won and looked really happy about it. And then I saw that a masked man had interfered. And so I went back and watched the finish, and it was what it was. But the masked man unmasked, and it was Pat McAfee. What the fuck?
He took out the Undisputed Era. He was the man that we didn't see on camera.
Well, but
picking them off.
But no, but it. Here's the thing. If he wanted to fuck the Undisputed Era, they had the title match. So put them in the title match and fuck them out of the title instead of fucking them out of the title match. And then we have to watch Fan Dancer versus Lorcan and Birch. And I don't fucking understand. He fucked Fan Dancer.
Because this way, instead of doing it the way you just said, they get the titles off Fan Dancer, who aren't exactly lighting things up. They get them on Lorcan and Birch, who obviously they want to do something with, because they're putting him with Pat McAfee, who is the best heel in the company as soon as he walks in the door. Well, now, wait a minute. Is he putting... Are they with Pat McAfee, or is he just come out to fuck the Undisputed Era? Because if he's with Pat McAfee, what in the Sam hell are they fucking doing? What does he have in common with these two fucking guys from fucking England? I don't know, and I could be wrong, but the way I took it at the end there was they're aligned now. And obviously, if he's taking out the Undisputed Era, he needs some guys on his side who could work a match. So, through basic deduction, I figured Birch and Lorcan are now associated with Pat McAfee.
Well, that'll just be wonderful. Pat McAfee will instantly walk in and be one of their top two heels, especially now that the Undisputed Era are baby faces, and I don't know that he needs two bald-headed guys hanging out with him. So anyway, the only thing worth a shit in 2 hours was Reed versus Theory and Ciampa beating people up. That was 2 hours of my life I will never get back. But any closing thoughts before we move on to the Smothers Brothers musical comedy hour?
Do not disparage the Smothers Brothers in that fashion, please. It was a groundbreaking show.
What about the Starland Vocal Band variety show? Remember that summer replacement in 76?
I think that may be more apropos, yes. I think that one works a little better.
All right, I can't figure it out, Brian. I don't know what they want me to do. I don't know what the people want. I don't know what the people want me to do. I don't know what the wrestlers want me to do. The AEW fans say this is their motto, that wrestling is supposed to be silly and fun and make you laugh. So we laugh at AEW's attempts at wrestling, and they get mad at us. The wrestlers themselves are obviously trying to be silly and funny and not to be taken seriously. So when we laugh at them and make fun of them and mock them for being silly, they get mad and block us on Twitter or ban us from watching the program or say we have no soul. And then they come out and do exactly what we've been saying they've been doing, that they get mad about when we talk about it. And all we're saying is exactly what they're doing. So if they're mad at us for verbally describing everything that they're doing on television, then why don't they just quit doing that shit or do different shit? I don't know how they want us to react, Brian. Are we supposed to be laughing here? Because I got to be honest, all the people on Twitter, do a welfare check, do a health check on Cornette. Did he have number one? I do not watch either one of these programs on Wednesday night, folks. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I fill orders all day. We record podcasts all day. I have a puppy that needs belly rubs. And by the time I eat dinner and lay down to go to sleep about 8:30, 8:45, I ain't going to watch this shit right before I go to bed. I'll have fucking nightmares. I get up the next morning and I condense all the punishment into one watching period where I can zip through the commercials and the entrances and the various things that we have rules on and get to the meat of the matter. So I appreciate everybody asking me about a welfare check, but I couldn't even get mad at this show because it's just ridiculous. Well, as I mentioned, go ahead.
I was going to say, I assume when you watch in the morning, you have a healthy breakfast.
Well, absolutely I do. I'll tell you what I start out with. I almost forgot this morning, but I start out with Magic Spoon. Magic Spoon will start your morning out right, folks. You know, you used to love cereal when you were a kid, but you had to give it up because it was full of sugar and junk and carbohydrates and chemicals, and you can't eat that stuff anymore, especially as you get older. You're trying to stay healthy. If you're trying to cut down on carbs or sugar, unhealthy food. There's a lot of things you can't eat, but good cereal is not one of them. You can start your day off and start it off right with our friends at Magic Spoon. 4 different flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. 0 sugar, 11 grams of protein, only 3 net grams of carbs in each serving, and it tastes amazing. Brian, your whole family, the kids and everything, Stacy here, they eat it like snack food, just out of a cup, or they eat it in a bowl like regular cereal. It's keto friendly, gluten free, grain free, soy free, low carb, and GMO free. And if you want to get a variety pack, and we dare you to get a variety pack because you'll see it's the best cereal in the world. Go to magicspoon.com/Jim. Magicspoon.com/Jim. Grab a variety pack. When you use the promo code Jim at checkout, you'll get free shipping. And Magic Spoon's so confident, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. If you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Magicspoon.com/Jim, Jim. Use the code Jim for free shipping. And thank you, folks at Magic Spoon, for sponsoring our fine podcast. I was so verklempt when we almost got into the musical comedy, I forgot about breakfast. All right, before we get back to the Sonny and Cher comedy hour, I almost got ahead of ourselves. What are you doing this week on the Arcadian Vanguard Network?
Another action-packed week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all shows on Twitter at Superpodcast or on Facebook. Facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few notes here. The latest episode of Charting the Territories with Al Getz and John Boucher is out right now. A deep analytical look at Mid-South Wrestling and Leroy McGurk's wrestling company. The boys look at the fourth quarter of 1980. Also, they asked the question, did Bill Watts take booking advice from Jim Croce? Also, they talk about Paul Ellering's wrestling career, Len Rossi's post-wrestling career, the Culkins Mississippi territory, and so much more. If you are a fan of wrestling history, no one does a show quite like this one. Check it out today at chartingthepodcast.com. It's also available wherever you find your favorite podcast. Just look for Charting the Territories. Also want to make mention, the latest episode of Breaking Kayfabe with Baldwin and Barry is another Unsolved Mysteries episode where the boys look at unsolved mysteries. It's exactly what it says. Also want to wish a very happy birthday to Jeff Baldwin, but check out the show at baldwinpod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Of course, John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now, where John and myself go back, play audio from, and review the original broadcast of Pro Wrestling Spotlight from 30 years ago. We are right now in August of 1990. The guest on the show that's coming out this weekend, Larry Zbyszko, highly entertaining, really good. It's fun listening to him interact with the callers. But this is at a period of time, you may remember, Jim, because you were still there, where there seemed to be a deal about to happen with the NWA and the AWA, I believe because of Ole Anderson's relationship with Vern Gagne. Yeah. And Larry Zbyszko was going to come in as the AWA champion, and I believe Jim Herd nixed it, and it ended up not happening. So this is right in the midst of all that.
Jim Herd undermining one of his bookers?
You know, going back and listening to these shows as wrestling was covered in real time, you realize there were so many better options than the Black Scorpion. If you brought in Larry Zbyszko as the AWA champion challenging the NWA champion, that would have been better.
It would have been a whole lot better than the Black Scorpion.
If Paul Orndorff had turned on Sting, that would have been better. I mean, it was nothing but better options than the Black Scorpion, who they had no idea who it was going to be in the end. And it ended up just being, poof, it's Ric Flair. But here this episode today, of course, wrestling news as it happened. We talk all about it. You hear the original coverage at pwspod.com, or look for John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight Then and Now, wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, the Mothership. The latest episode is being edited right now. Go through.
You should have sung that today. Mothership. We're going to land the mothership. We're going to land the mothership. Give up the funk. We're going to land. Get with the times, Brian. Everybody's singing these days.
Go through the archive today at 605pod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. The Mothership.
Yeah. All right. Let's go back to this other mother. I'm not going to finish that word. What was that girl's name that used to be on Friends? She her first gig in show business was she starred in the Bruce Springsteen music video. What was it? Courtney Cox. Cox, that's right. I knew I'd remember that name, Cox. Yeah. Anyway, the AEW program actually opened up with crowd pans, the announcers billboarding the show, entrances. It looked like the opening of a wrestling program this week. And the first match was the first round in the AEW title elimination tournament. Basically, it's an 8-man tournament. The winner of this tournament gets a shot at the AEW title. Wardlow versus Jungle Boy. And I wrote, good God, this booking. Because why would you just do this to either one of these guys? They make the classic mistake that they always make, that they assume that this talent is over because their same audience of pea-brained nitwits cheers for them. If you go to the mall and scream out at the top of your lungs, who's Wardlow? Who's Jungle Boy? Some old guy might say Bamba. But they were trying to do a big man, little man match. And I saw somebody tweeted that, well, at least Jungle Boy gave a good accounting of himself. The first half of this match was very good, and then they lost the fucking plot. But the point is, in just a first-round cold TV match, why sacrifice Jungle Boy, one of your only baby faces with some charisma, to get beat up by Wardlow? And then, unfortunately, they didn't sacrifice him enough, because if you're going to sacrifice a guy to get beat up by Wardlow, he needed to get beat up by Wardlow. Jungle Boy came out with Dino Douche and Dwarf Dong Sucker, but they didn't stay ringside. And the match started out, it was good big man, little man stuff that they were doing. Their hearts were in the right place. The psychology, what was laid out, but Wardlow is so green at registering and staggering for the smaller opponent, but not looking like he's waiting for the shit. Do you understand what I'm saying there? I understand. A lot of big guys that just stagger and wobble and wait for shit, right? I'll tell you, Big Bubba Rogers instantly learned it. You go back and watch his matches for when he was the first year in the business in 1986 with Ole Anderson. Some of these people, he's fucking rocking and registering, but he looks off kilter when he has to be, not like he's standing there waiting on it. Anyway, but the heat spot was Wardlow buckle bombing Jungle Boy out on the floor into the fucking ring post. And it looked good. And then he lackadaisically rolled him back in the ring and went for a cover and didn't even get a 2 count by the time he did it. This could have been a great fucking spot if you're going to do that, to get heat on the fucking heel by doing that to some babyface and hurting him, or this babyface and hurting him, but as a heat spot to go to the break, and as it gets a 1 count. Excrement had all kinds of word vomit explaining how the ring posts are square. Thank you for chiming in with that, Sockface. We couldn't have lived without that information. So then after a buckle bomb into the fucking ring post, Wardlow kicks the shit out of Jungle Boy for, would you call that quite a while that he just tossed him around and beat him up?
Yeah, I guess so.
After all that punishment, when it was time, then Jungle Boy started doing dives and springboard drop kicks off the top rope and spinning DDTs. Fresh as a daisy. Then Wardlow had to go up to Jungle Boy's on the ropes, but Wardlow's got to go up to the top to give Jungle Boy a move. Like, why would Wardlow go to the top rope on purpose to begin with? Whereas the only chance this little kid might have of fucking beating him. So, of course, he goes up there so the Jungle Boy can do a reverse Havacorona off the top rope on the guy 100 pounds heavier than him. And this whole thing degenerated into a fucking indie-style spot fest. Jungle Boy was getting close 2 counts on Wardlow after being buckle bombed into the post as a heat spot. And then finally Wardlow F5s Brock Lesnar's finish, F5s Jungle Boy while they're on the ramp. He picks him up and F5s him into the ring over the top rope from the ramp, and then gets in the ring and gives him another one in the ring. 1, 2, 3. What the fuck? Give 1. It would have been. And don't do the less spectacular 1 second. Even though the bump was better on the second one, the idea that you picked this guy up and flung him into the ring over the top rope. God damn it. So Wardlow finally beat Jungle Boy after Jungle Boy found the Fountain of Youth and the, restorer, the old native Indian energy restorer that he drank in the middle of the fucking match. I don't know what the fuck. It didn't do anything for anybody because Wardlow doesn't look like he can beat Little Jungle Boy, and Little Jungle Boy should have been put in that position because all he can do is what he's been taught by the rest of these outlaws he's surrounded himself with, which is do moves instead of show the impact and effect of them and have a match that makes sense. And he's getting short. Jungle Boy is getting fucked worse than almost anybody in this because he could be a fucking star it's somewhere with somebody. It's not even, if the WWE doesn't exist now as some place that a star can be made, but they would probably use him smarter than these fucking nitwits have, putting him with Dwarf Dong Sucker and Dino Douche. But I hate that he can't go to a territory and have somebody like a Bill Watts that says, I'm going to make you a fucking big deal, and do it. What'd you think of this thing?
I don't disagree with your points, but even with that said, I thought it was a good little match. Now, there's a plausibility issue. I mean, they brought him out. What did they say he weighed?
Oh, God.
Was it 158 pounds?
I said somewhere around 160, so thereabouts.
So, I mean, that's a problem, because he's in there with a monster who should be just mowing over people. So if you can get past that, which I had to, I thought it was a good match. Every match doesn't have to be a back and forth. Every match doesn't have to have guys kicking out of everything. I hate to see Jungle Boy squashed, because I think there's a lot of potential what you could do with him, despite the fact that he looks like one of the Simpson brothers from World Class.
Yeah, he does. Just even thinner.
But I thought it was all right. I didn't have a major problem. Of all the things I'm going to complain about with AEW, I now have to separate what I could shrug at, what I have a minor problem with, and what I have a big problem with.
Okay, then let me, in the spirit of our musical comedy episode, let me say that, hey, nobody got dropped on their head, carried out on a stretcher. Nobody teleported. Nobody broke into song. There was nobody invisible. This was a great match.
You see?
Yeah.
You can't say that for everything on this show, the list of things you just said.
The next segment, Eddie Kingston and his heels were shown the promo. Remember, we left them. They were beating up Moxley last week. And they showed more of what Kingston said off the air. Either they planned it this way or they just ran long and they decided, I don't know. I like it. Here's what you didn't see last week. That's a great concept. Used it many times. But here's what we saw. We saw the beat down of Moxley and then even more of the promo. But Eddie Kingston's whole point was Moxley sold out for sports entertainment and left us behind to go be an entertainer. We were real wrestlers. This is on the show that brought you football field fuckery and the tooth and nail match. And I love Eddie Kingston's promos because he has so much passion and he can make you believe he believes what he's saying. He's so out of place in this fucking zoo atmosphere. He's out there saying, and they're letting him say, son of a bitch, and goddamn over and over. Multiple times. Here's my problem. Now everybody's, now you're taking Eddie Kingston apart. No, I'm not. I'm saying that more things on this show ought to be like Eddie Kingston, because here's the problem I have. In Seg 2, they're trying to be so hard to be real. They're threatening to kill people and fucking end people and fucking son of a bitch and goddamn. And in Seg 5, they're as fake as a fucking football bat. Something like this, what Kingston was doing and the over the top, it would get over on a serious program that wasn't all comedy and angles and just goofiness all over the place. But since most of these assholes on this program aren't trying, it comes off like a fucking guy out there cussing and saying bad words on television to make people believe that something's real. Does that make sense to you? It's just bad taste.
I hear where you're coming from. I can't critique anything about Eddie Kingston's promo. I thought it was fantastic.
No, I'm not saying that's.
But you're saying
problem.
The problem is it's mixed in with all these.
We've got news footage of a goddamn gang war in the middle of downtown LA, and we come back from a segment of the fucking Carol Burnett show. That's what I'm talking about. This is good, believable shit. And then everybody that comes after it and before it shits all over it because it's so obviously silly, fake bullshit. That then people just think, well, that guy was just cussing to make us believe it. That's what I'm saying. I guess I pissed you off.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think he's a fantastic promo. I thought the thing from last week, I could understand what you're saying, that you like it, where they're saying, here's what you missed last week, but that should have been on the show last week. It was really good. It was the strongest part of the whole beatdown of Moxley.
Well, yeah, but then the problem was nobody was trying to get in and stop it. So if it made it longer, it would just call more attention to that. See, I got a counter for
You certainly do, but no, he's really.
And you know what? People are saying, well, if people are trying to stop it, he wouldn't have time to cut the fucking promo. Yes, he would. If he's got all of his fucking band of heels playing King of the Hill on the ropes where people are trying to get in and getting knocked down while fucking Kingston's over the top of Moxley fucking telling him all the things that's wrong with him. Then there's more urgency. It's not just a guy laying there getting trash talked because it's part of a show. You hear me? Do you feel me?
As I said before, I don't disagree with you.
They did a Moxley and Kingston history package kind of thing where Moxley was doing the sit-down promo. And there was, footage and B-roll and etc. Great delivery and emotion. This may have been John Moxley's best wrestling interview ever that I've seen. He normally does good promos. This one was excellent. If he just didn't have the fucking thumbtack matches. I have nothing bad to say about this promo and this sit-down package. It made it sound serious. The only thing I have to say is it was followed by the most fucking egregiously ridiculous and stupid and visually fucking silly nonsense that they'd had on the program yet as soon as Moxley tries to draw him some money and sell him a fucking ticket thinking that people might see a real fight for once. But your thoughts on Mr. Moxley's promo?
He's a great promo. My issues are with him in the ring. Beyond just the garbage match stuff. I just don't like him in the ring. It doesn't resonate with me, but he's a fantastic talker.
So then we go from this guy basically swearing that one of them will have their final day when this big match comes about to the entrance of Kenny Olivier's substitute opponent for the evening, Sonny Kiss. And we should say, originally, we missed out on a dream match here, Brian. We missed out on a dream match. It was originally going to be Twinkle Toes McFingerbang himself against, I guess, what he would look like if he stopped eating for 6 months and got on meth and fucking floated in the river for 3 days. Jelly Nutella. This was going to be the dream match. And a lot of people were billboarding it. They're saying, what's Cornette going to say? A lot of people, Brian, you know this, a lot of the AEW fans are in Jelly's corner because he's a man of the people. He's one of them. They see themselves in Jelly. They identify with Jelly Nutella. That's why they root for him. Because they see in Jelly Nutella what they see when they look in the mirror. An unathletic, unaccomplished, unkempt, unemployed, unremarkable goof in his early 30s that so far excels at nothing in life except not being good at anything.
I don't agree with you.
You don't?
No, I don't think that he connects like that to the AEW fans, by and large. He has a small segment of fans, but even the AEW fans have rejected this guy.
So you're saying that he's not even good at being bad enough to be good for them?
Well, gee, that was a long way to say that.
Round my elbow to get to my wrist?
I guess so. I'm saying that even a lot of the AEW fans see him and say, this guy's simply not good enough. This guy doesn't bring that much to the table. The ones who compliment him the most are the ones who say, yeah, I agree, he shouldn't be wrestling there, but maybe he'd be a good talent scout for the indies. Like, that's like the best compliment I've seen of him. I think the AEW fans are pretty hip to the fact that this guy just doesn't have it.
If you can't do something, then get a job looking for other people that can do it. Like you'd be able to figure out what that is. Anyway, unfortunately, Jelly got sidelined because he was around somebody that tested positive for the COVID. Not Jericho-vid. Somebody else. He was also at the gathering of the Mudstock, as we termed it. The gathering of all the Mud Show play wrestlers that get together and fucking diddlies. That's where Dwarf Dong Sucker got his fucking name.
Yeah, so it was a big weekend for AEW talent.
Oh, yeah. They got to get COVID and suck rubber dongs and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, Jelly was quarantined, so naturally, they put his tag team partner in his place. I bet you that Kenny Olivier and Jelly was going to get some time, because those two couldn't resist going out there and doing some kind of fucking circus theatrics. But I think that somebody even realized that there's no way that you could put Kenny Olivier in the ring with Sonny Kiss and have them go any length of time without stinking a joint out and just being embarrassing. So they cut this down, and for that, we can be thankful. Sonny Kiss's entrance would be absolutely fabulous in a Las Vegas review. But on a show that's purported to be professional wrestling, that is self-described as a professional wrestling show, it's just fucking insulting. And you can blow me all you want, all of you out there, with your fucking homophobic bullshit, because I don't care who Sonny's fucking or not fucking, or what sex or gender, race, creed, or color they are. But when somebody does a fucking entrance like this in the UFC, I'll apologize. Until then, it's fucking ridiculous. And fuck all of you. And Jim Ross having to call Sonny Kiss her just to make some people on Twitter happy is fucking ridiculous. And there goes his credibility, because the most decorated, most famous, most accomplished pro wrestling announcer currently alive on the planet is calling a fucking guy who's obviously a guy, a fucking her on television, and it's just ridiculous. But then it gets worse. Of the two contestants here, the more effeminate talent was next to come out. George Hamilton gives Twinkle Toes the big phony intro that a heel would ask for, but instead of praising him with a bunch of legitimate praiseworthy gaga, he's praising him by announcing that he's the Tokyo Princess champion and the fucking Wrestling Observer Wrestler of the Year and his 7 stars and all the shit that every single AEW fan that's already watching this program already knows. And everybody else is going, what in the bloody fuck? What in the wide, wide world of sports is that guy talking about? What is a Wrestling Observer? What is a Tokyo Mega title? What is a 7-star match? Because they are adamantly opposed to getting any just regular wrestling fan to watch this fucking dog and pony show. So, George Hamilton gives the big phony intro, and out come dancing girls with brooms. The normal people at home, if there were any watching this, would say, what is this, a Japanese game show? They're laughing. They don't know that this idiot had a gimmick in Japan 5 years ago where he came to the ring sweeping a broom like a fucking moron. Do they? If you go to the mall, what does Kenny Omega carry to the ring? Well, everybody's going to say a broom. Why wouldn't he? This is and it was so over the top, and not in a good heel heat way, but just in a stupid rib on wrestling way. People that did like Twinkle Toes won't like him after this. What did you think of that entrance?
I'm going to tell you, I actually wrote a note to myself here, and you may disagree with me, because this also takes in this match, actually. But I wrote, the first 25 minutes, other than Justin Roberts' intro and Kenny's Dancing Girls, this has been all right. That was my review of the first 25 minutes of AEW, including the entirety of this match. I didn't like the intro. Justin Roberts is the worst ring announcer in professional wrestling. Let me just throw that in here. It's been a few weeks since I've said it. I've seen now Ring of Honor. I've seen NXT. I've seen WWE. I've seen AEW. He is awful.
Yeah.
And what he was doing there, it's the same as Chris Jericho coming out as the demo god. Yeah, if you read The Observer, you understand what that is. If you follow the debate on social media, you know what that is. The average person has no idea what the goddamn demo is? What is the demo got? What is that about?
They don't know what that is. They don't know what 7-star matches are. They don't know what anybody that you would try to get to expand your audience would, if they knew what this was, they'd say, why are they fucking talking about it?
You know, and we'll talk about the match in a moment. And I agree with you, the dancing girls.
That won't take long.
The dancing girls with the brooms was ridiculous. But yeah, there was a time, because I was around for a little bit of it, where the goal of independent wrestling, and it didn't always work. Often it didn't, depending on who the promoter was. But the goal was to draw a small microcosm of what the bigger crowd would be at the Spectrum or the Garden or wherever it may be. You wanted to get families, you wanted to get kids, you wanted to get old people. That was what the independent show was geared towards. At some point, I don't know if it's a direct relation to the rise of Ring of Honor, and I'm not saying that in a negative way towards the rise of Ring of Honor, but the audience changed, and who the independent wrestling was geared towards changed. It wasn't about trying to get casual fans or people off the streets or families to come spend the night at the wrestling matches. It was, we have a super niche audience. Let's try to get that crowd in the building, and we will focus the show on what their sensibilities are and what we think they will like. And there's too much of that in AEW, where they're not doing things for the guy sitting at home on the couch watching with his kids. They're not doing something for families. They're doing something for the people they show in the crowd. It's always the same guy. It's always the same t-shirt. And this stuff about Demo God and Kenny being introduced as 7 stars, Dave Meltzer's name, and I don't have a problem with Dave like you do, but Dave Meltzer's name being all over this show is ridiculous.
Well, wait, later on, I want to make a point when it really gets bad later on in another match. I think I've come up with where we've been wrong about Uncle Dave in the past.
But it's ridiculous. I mean, the fact that to the average fan, what they would, if the average fan picked up the Observer, they would say, oh my God, this is exposing everything. I always wanted to know all this inside dirt. That's the same reaction I had when I first got the Observer. In the world of kayfabe, that a world of professional wrestling on TV should be in, why would you want to acknowledge the guy that if you read,
yes,
he's going to say, oh, well, here's what was really going on, and here's what segment failed.
Yes.
Again, it's everyone filleting themselves. But we'll get to the match now. That was my thoughts on the intro. I didn't like the intro. I hated the intro. Justin Roberts sucks.
Who would have thought there'd be 2 segments on the sports-based wrestling program containing fucking hired dancing girls? And yes, we know you're the president of the Justin Roberts fan club. He's the second coming of Gary Michael Capetta.
And by the way, from what I've seen in the past, Sonny Kiss is a better dancer than every other girl that was on this show.
Well, yes, that's the thing. I'm not saying this guy is not talented and doesn't have some kind of charisma. You can see when he comes out, he's got the smile and the whole 9 yards. He's athletic, just not for wrestling. He was a gymnast, I believe we've heard.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I think he was. Point is, yes, he'd be absolutely fabulous in a Las Vegas review. Wonderful dancer. Doesn't have anything to do with wrestling. Needs to get far away from the wrestling business. Because it's hurting a lot of people's feelings, him trying to fucking wrestle. And that's why they had to do what they did, because they knew this couldn't go any time. Because Twinkle Toes can't carry anybody that's green and awkward, because he's still green and awkward himself and refuses to get any better. But basically, here's the match. They circled the ring, trying to out-Twinkle Toes each other, and then Olivier rushes at Sonny Kiss for his fucking knee lift, and Sonny Kiss shit himself, scared of the knee, and covered up when Olivier was still 3 feet away and anticipated the bump and ended up, Olivier hit him with the knee and landed straddle of him. Somebody on Twitter replayed that segment and said Sonny had 1 bump to take and fucked it up. And then Twinkle Toes hits the 1-winged fairy, boom, 1, 2, 3. At least they got the time right. But serious to fucking God, I don't know what to think about why. Why do they think that anybody is going to take any of this seriously or watch it at all?
Again, they're doing things that are geared towards the audience they have, A. B, I disagree with what you said earlier. I think it would have been the same thing with Jelly Nutella, because they're obviously gearing Kenny Omega for a heel run. He was a heel here.
Well,
And they're also trying to reposition
he's
him.
the most unintimidating milksop of a fucking heel, just like he's the most uninspiring milksop of a babyface.
In another world, he'd be the kind of heel that you want to see get his ass kicked, but they obviously use heels and babyfaces different in AEW.
Oh, he's the kind of heel I want to see get his ass kicked, but not for the fucking reasons that they have manipulated.
But they're positioning him after the first year of kind of just being middle of the road Kenny Omega. And then in the tag team division, they're trying to reposition him and give him a really big, strong win here in the first round of this tournament. And he also gets to display some of his new heel attitude. For that reason, I think it would have been the same exact match with Jelly Nutella, because they needed him to win in 30 seconds. That's kind of the story now of the tournament. They're obviously gearing things towards him against Adam Page at the end of the tournament, which you got to think will lead to Kenny Omega somehow getting a win, getting the title, and then you're set up perfectly for Adam Page and Kenny Omega going forward. Now, with everything you feel about Kenny Omega,
you just said all that stuff you just said actually makes sense, so I'm sure it won't turn out that way.
You're probably right. Everything you feel about Kenny Omega, and I understand it, and I don't have the visceral hatred that you have towards him, although I think he's made stupid decisions in the past.
I loathe him.
I think he's made bad decisions in the past. However, at this point in time, I have to look at wrestling as a whole. Every one of these guys has made a stupid decision. Every one of these guys has fallen down from a fake grenade. Every one of these guys has wrestled the Invisible Man or grabbed the guy's dick and taken a flip from it. Every one of these guys has done something that, as a traditional wrestling fan, I would find offensive, or at the very least, completely stupid. Every single one of them has done that. So I don't disqualify Omega the way you do. So with that said, I thought this was the best use of Omega for how they're going to position things. Have him come in there, he's playing a heel, have him go over quick, and then be a disingenuous prick at the end of the match, hugging Sonny Kiss while Sonny Kiss is selling her, what the hell are you doing? Like I said, my note was...
Well, at least a disingenuous prick will be typecasting.
Like I said, my note was, as of this point in the show, the first 25 minutes, I thought this was a fairly good AEW show. You had the Wardlow Jungle Boy match. We already discussed your critiques of it. I think you were right on most charges there.
But it wasn't insulting.
But it wasn't insulting. You had the Eddie Kingston Moxley stuff, which I thought was pretty good. And then you had this match. I thought the show at this point, I was like, wow, they're doing an all right show. Let's see how long this continues.
Not very long. Poor old Tony Schiavone tried to interview Pockets, and he said 2 or 3 words. It's not even worth talking about. Dasha is in the parking lot when Cody and Arn pull up. They are actually rematching Cody with Pockets next week. Oh, joy. Oh, bliss. Oh, be still, my fluttering heart. But Dasha talks to Cody. Cody's talking about Pockets, saying he has to beat me. I'm the champion. Like that Cody might have trouble beating him. But I guess since he went 20 minutes last week, he might. And Arn Anderson says nothing except hello to Dasha. So now we've got Cody, wasting his time fucking around with this piece of shit.
Is Arn Anderson Cody's Ed Strangler Lewis?
Apparently.
I was looking at some pictures of Thez and Ed Strangler Lewis. I tweeted some out earlier, and I'm thinking, hey, it kind of reminds me of Arn. Just standing there, doesn't really say anything, doesn't really do anything.
Because at the time, Strangler Lewis was broken blind.
And blind, yeah, that's right.
So you've got Cody Rhodes and Arn Anderson doing an interview. Cody's the only one that speaks, and he's having to act like fucking Pockets is a legitimate threat to him in any way. Physically, as far as being a star, as far as anything.
And by the way, a couple other notes. She called him Cody. His name on the show is Cody. I saw the commercial for that variety show, whatever it is that he's on TNT. In the commercial for it, they call him Cody Rhodes.
Because it's not wrestling.
Ridiculous. Also,
he can be Cody Rhodes if it ain't wrestling. As a matter of fact, then they ought to just call him Cody Rhodes on AEW, because that ain't wrestling either.
Look, if you were going to make these guys executive vice presidents, isn't what I would do, but more power to you. But I hate bringing it up on camera. this guy who's involved in a feud with someone else, this guy who's a champion in this company, he's not here today to be involved in wrestling, just to be an executive vice president. I don't know. I don't think that's a productive thing.
Just to go in and tell all the people who work for me what to do, that I'll be wrestling in the near future.
Yeah.
Once again, if I had advised someone, what I would have said was, yes, make it a wrestler-friendly company. Have a guy that you appoint as the head of the wrestlers union or players league or whatever, and that you take their input seriously. And it's a wrestler-friendly environment, not like some of these evil corporations. So what happened? He made 5 of them real executive vice presidents. Fucking hell. Kingston rebutted Moxley. It was a great promo from Eddie Kingston. I wrote I would love to see him on a wrestling program sometime. He was the only thing that was worth a shit in Chikara. When we did the Ring of Honor crossover that brief period of time, I didn't like the guys in the pajamas playing wrestler and playing luchador. It was ridiculous, and that's where a lot of these fucking vermin come from. But for whatever reason, Eddie Kingston was working there. I mean, he was local to the area, but that somebody didn't pick him up back then because I heard his promos and he could fucking fight and throw the punch. We had him come in and do a fucking match with Steen for the Ring of Honor title just because he could cut a good promo. I don't know why he was wasting his time with the fucking play wrestlers. Maybe he would have got further if he had not been saddled with that reputation. But good promo. The next match, if you can call it that. Brian, do you remember 1972?
I wasn't born yet, although I've researched a lot of things. I know a little bit about 1972, of course.
Well, 1972 was the year that the Kung Fu movies exploded on the screens of drive-in theaters across America. And they were, except for Bruce Lee was dedicated enough to try, even though he stretched it on occasion, he tried to make the fights somewhat credible, especially with all the badass shit he could do. You didn't have fucking Bruce Lee flipping up in the air, doing 6 cartwheels in the air in slow motion, kicking 5 people in the face and landing on one jump like he did on some of the off-brand Kung Fu movies. Well, the next match on this Variety Hour episode of All Petite was Felix versus Penta El Zorro, the Lucha Brothers wrestling each other. Which I liked Dory versus Terry and even Mark versus Jay Briscoe a lot more than this fucking thing. I watched about 2 minutes of this match, which looked like a live-action Kung Fu movie instead of a wrestling match. And then they came to a complete halt. Both of them stood there, taking turns chopping each other, started telling the crowd to shh so that the chops would sound louder. Actually, they're standing there cooperating with each other. We already know they're brothers. They're supposed to be having an athletic competition. I can buy that. Brothers can wrestle or whatever. But instead, they do the Kung Fu movies. That takes all the goddamn reality out of it. Then they come to a complete stop, shush the crowd so that they can trade chops on purpose, let each other hit them. And then the one that fucking did threw a shitty chop fucking sounded like me slapping Stacy sometime for fun. And I fast forwarded the rest of this fucking thing. Let me know when Walter does that spot with somebody where you chop me and I'll chop you on purpose and we'll stand here and take it. When Walter does it, I'll watch it. In the meantime, these two fucking sock-faced fucks, I fast forwarded about 10 minutes and I stopped to see what they were doing. And at that point, they were helping each other balance on the top rope so that both guys at the same time could do a double backflip off the top into the middle of the ring, and you couldn't tell who took the move and who gave the move. And I zipped further. Felix won, if anybody gives a 2 rats' asses.
Well, you missed the spot where he got hurt.
How'd he get hurt and then do a fucking backflip off the top rope? Or was that after?
I think that was after it. And by the way, I too saw the people popped because it was spectacular. What exactly did he do? Other than both guys jumping at the same time and both doing a backflip, what is the actual move supposed to be?
Here's the move. One guy gets up on the top rope, and then he reaches down and helps the other guy get up on the top rope, standing next to him. And then one of them stands looking away from the ring, and the other one stands next to him looking toward the ring, and they grab a hold of each other carefully, and they both do a backflip off the top rope like they're going into the swimming pool, and they land in the middle of the ring. That's the move. I just described exactly what they did.
Well, earlier in the match, and I thought the match had some really nice tricks, some really impressive tricks.
Tricks, yeah.
But I didn't like the pacing. I'm not really into the match. I got to admit, Rey Fenix is an impressive aerial artist. Penta just doesn't do anything for me. I don't see it. I don't get it with him. I know a lot of people really like him, and they like to hold their fingers up and chant whatever the hell he chants.
I like to hold my finger up every time I see this.
He doesn't do anything for me, but earlier in the match, they're both on the top rope, and Rey Fenix does a leg scissors off the top rope and lands right on his own head and clearly knocks himself silly because the match kind of falls apart for a while after that. That's the only other note I have about this match. So now you have next week Kenny Omega versus Rey Fenix because they're in the same brackets.
Oh, God.
But he may be hurt. I mean, I got to be honest. He landed right on his head, and he was clearly messed up from that point going forward.
I would feel sorry for him if they didn't just do this shit over and over until something has to happen for no reason. Anyway, they did a replay of the video game breaking Poor Alan. The named video arcade game of fuckwit Pip Sabian and Miro the Bulgarian brute. I can't even say it. I think of a Bulgarian brute when I hear that name, and then I think of him with his fucking blonde Q-tip hair wearing that pink Minnie Mouse t-shirt. I just think, well, isn't he just special?
He likes video games. They should just dress him like Super Mario.
Yes, and he could gain some weight. He wouldn't have to work out because he didn't need the stomach. Sharp-eyed fans, by the way, noticed that the video game was not even plugged in when they were playing it. This was on Twitter and etc. So there was Pip Sabian crying about a video game named Alan, wrestling for kids by kids. Officer Bar Brady was with Colt Cabana and two of the Dork Order jobbers. Did you know that one of the jobbers is 5 feet tall with Private Jim Nelson's head? Remember old Boris Zerkoff?
Yes, I do.
The gimmick they gave him was actually that he had a skull twice as fucking thick as the normal human, and he used a headbutt as a fucking finish because he looked like he had a goddamn skull twice as thick as the normal human head. Did you understand this? Colt is obviously about to face Paige in this tournament thingy. The Dork Order jobbers they started yelling at each other. The bald guy, I don't care what their names are because it doesn't matter because they've made them completely ridiculous anyway. The bald guy was actually kind of entertaining in the sum of the match that I watched that he has at some point later. And you could put him in a group and he could serve a purpose, but he was awful here on the fucking promo because it was the material mainly, but just no, it was both. He was awful on the promo and it was bad material. And they're yelling at each other and I don't know why. What was up with this?
I don't exactly know. Apparently on the Young Bucks comedy show, Being the Elite, which I would encourage everyone to not watch.
Most people are already there with you.
Apparently the Dark Order guys, despite being vicious heels and an evil faction on AEW TV, do comedy segments on that show. And from what I heard, the bald guy, I think his name was Silver, they said, he's one of the stars of the comedy segments with the Dork Order. So now they're trying to take that and put it on TV. Like I said before, they started out as this evil, dark group. Now they're just doing comedy. And I think that's what you saw. My other big takeaway here was, did you ever think you'd see the day where Colt Cabana is the least comedic person in every single thing he's in? He's been a serious professional wrestler mostly in AEW.
My first comment in my notes on this match, Colt Cabana is like Lou Thez in this environment. He's a serious wrestler.
Yeah.
It looks in shape, can work. Adam Page is great when he's not drunk. There was nothing to criticize, at least in the first half of this match.
Well, we didn't say the match. The match is Adam Page versus Colt Cabana.
Well, yes, yeah. Well, I mentioned it, I thought, earlier. I'm sorry. And Colt and Page, I wrote later after the break, there was nothing to criticize this match. It was actually a pro wrestling match broke out. I didn't like it as much as Bronson Reed versus Austin Theory, because with Reed versus Theory, both guys are going to be future superstars. With this match, it was Colt, who's a veteran, and he's as over as Colt's ever going to get, taking on Adam Page, who's a great talent when he's not being made to act drunk. I wrote Colt Cabana's having the best match of the night. That shows you where we're at. Page German suplexed and bridged Cabana's big ass. He does have a lower center of gravity. But the one thing that kind of ruined the enjoyment for me, Page goes to the top to do his fucking moonsault out to the floor. Thank God he didn't do it this time, because we mentioned he does it every time and he nails it effortlessly every time, and it's totally killed it because it looks so easy. But he goes for it. Cabana comes and pushes him off, but he does a front flip and takes a back bump on the apron of the ring and then bounces to the floor. For a heat spot in a TV match, one of the top guys, even if you don't care about yourself, how much more of their bad booking do they need to rewrite because you hurt yourself taking a bump in a TV match that nobody's going to remember tomorrow? Will that bump be remembered by anybody except Adam Page by next week?
I must admit, until you just brought it up, I had forgotten it.
There you go. Page went for the buckshot lariat. Cabana charged and ducked low, and they both stopped. Somebody got their signals crossed. I don't know what the fuck. But then Colt came back in for another kick or whatever. I don't know. But the match up until the closing moments wasn't too bad. Then Colt sat on the top rope, and Colt's sitting on the top rope like he's just sitting on the top rope with his feet on the middle rope, just sitting there like he's in a chair. And Page, did I see this correctly, leaves the apron, climbs up the turnbuckles, and climbed up on Colt's shoulders so that Colt could give him that move. Is that what I saw?
I think so.
Okay. Finally, Page hit the buckshot lariat. Colt took a heck of a bump for it. Good match until it went too far at the end and they just, did some dumb shit. But grading in this environment, wow. Just a 1/4 star above Flair and Steamboat. What do you think?
I thought it was all right. There was nothing truly offensive in the AEW sense of the word about the match.
By the way, there's my Sprite Zero bottle having the air let out of it.
Like I said, I think they're setting up Page versus Omega, clearly, which is the long-term thing they've been setting up for quite a while.
Maybe they should have got to it when anybody would have still given a shit.
Can't complain too much about it. Like I said, I was very critical of Colt Cabana for years. I really can't criticize too much that he's done in AEW. I think he's been just fine, actually.
It's the Ole Anderson rule he came up with for me. Cornette, I used to think you were a dumb shit. So many other dumb shits have come along that are worse than you. You've climbed up the ladder without doing anything. Taz did a promo with his men, Ricky Starks and Brian Cage. Taz sounds like he mean it and gets to and makes a point. That's refreshing. And then Ricky Starks took over. Starks may be the best all-around talent that they've signed since they've been on the air. Think about this. I mean, the people they started with, I'm not counting them, but since they've brought people in, has anybody really been a good worker, a good talker, and looked like an athlete, all three at the same time?
I would have to think about it, but I agree. He is fantastic. He has the best facial expressions. The entire time Taz is talking, Ricky Starks is involved, even though he's not saying anything. I'm really, really high on him. He's great.
And then on the other side, if Taz will mention Cage, Cage will just make a funny face and smile and whatever. He doesn't know who the fuck he's supposed to be yet.
Someone sent me a picture. I couldn't believe it. Apparently it's from Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, like maybe 10 years ago. Of Brian Cage. I just figured he was always a big guy.
Yeah.
I'm not here to accuse someone of taking every steroid and monkey hormone known to man. But oh my God, he was a small, normal-sized guy, and now he's gigantic. Have you ever seen a picture of what he looked like 10 years ago?
No, I never have. I thought he always looked like this.
I thought so too. Someone please tweet it at Jim, the picture you sent me. Couldn't believe it. I thought it was a joke. I said, it can't be the same guy. Apparently it's the same guy.
You know, Warlord, Terry, a nice guy. When he came to Crockett in 1986, he was 21 years old. When he had that little run in the summer with Baby Doll, where he was her enforcer against us, he was 325 pounds and as hard as the table that I'm sitting at, every part of his body. That's when he was 21 or 22. He said when he graduated, he weighed 325. When he graduated high school, he weighed 185.
No shit. Wow, I didn't know that.
But it's something in the milk out there and where they're from. Anyway, speaking of something in their milk, I think somebody got dosed. Somebody, some acid was dropped in somebody's drink. Somebody took a little Molly before the show. I know everybody has been waiting for me to talk about what occurred next on this program, and I honestly don't know what to say. I do not have words. I do not know what to think about the people involved in this from start to finish. I don't know why anybody thought that. Well, I do. The people that thought this was a good idea were the people that are masturbating themselves on television every week. Whether it be the mental masturbation of the alleged amateur armchair booker that's running this fiasco, or the masturbation from the past his expiration date oversized canned ham that has taken over this program and turned it into the Carol Burnett show when Jim Neighbors would guest. I don't know what to say about this thing. I do know one thing. I will make the apology that I've already made on Twitter. I apologize for complimenting anyone ever. I apologize for saying anything good about anyone ever, because and I will not do it as freely anymore because I'm tired of getting burnt. Whenever I do say good things about modern wrestlers, invariably they make me look like an idiot. Remember when I went to MLW and I liked old Mance Warner? And then I found out he was on every independent show every weekend doing staple gun matches and wrestling the Invisible Man. And I had to quit putting him over. MJF had it. The one guy in this company, the one guy on their entire roster that not only had it, but was still young enough to use it. The one heel who looked and talked and worked like who he was supposed to be. And he's blown the image. Name another heel that looks good enough to be a star wrestler, looks like enough of an athlete with enough size, can cut a promo as a top guy and work psychologically like he's a top guy, like he's real and like he's who he's supposed to be. Name another heel on this roster besides MJF.
I can't.
Name another face a baby face that fits that description besides Cody, that looks good like an athlete, that can cut a fucking promo, that sounds like he would say these things and can fucking work like that guy should be able to work if he's real. Another baby face besides Cody.
Off the top of my head, I can't.
So they had two and now they've got one. MJF had... He rode back with me from one of the MLW tapings in Black Beauty to the hotel in Chicago, which was like 30, 40 minutes away. So the MLW tapings in Chicago were in Cicero, and it is a horrible looking neighborhood filled with vacant lots and industrial parks and a lot of fucking barbed wire and people sitting around on the corners of the streets that you probably wouldn't want to go up and engage in casual conversation with. Not a sharp neighborhood. We're leaving, going back to the truck in the parking lot. And of course, since this was just last year, it's long after the days when there actually were uniformed policemen to escort the talent out, because nobody needs that anymore. MJF is being MJF to the people then. To the point, I mean, he's not like he's getting in everybody's face and screaming and cussing them, but as he's walking to the truck through the parking lot, people are saying shit to him, and he's blowing them off, insulting them, and keeping moving as he goes. He's being a rude dick. To the point where I was like, you know what, fuck. We're out here in fucking Cicero in this neighborhood. Maybe you ought to lighten up and be a little nicer to these people. I almost said that. That's how fucking committed he was. And now I don't know which one he is, whether he's Steve Lawrence or Edie Gourmet. But it's overtaken him too. They've not only decided to fucking take the rest of their program and flush it down the porcelain throne, but they are now infecting the few people they had that could do this right. The people, we haven't actually said what we're talking about, have we?
You have not.
Jericho and MJF were scheduled to have a steak dinner and talk things over. And they did. They sat down at this alleged steakhouse and they did scripted, unfunny comedy about how they were ordering their steak from their waitress, Velma or Thelma. It was like it was like Harvey Korman and Lyle Wagner doing a skit on the Carol Burnett show. And you can kind of even hear the audience tittering. And then suddenly, they broke into song. Music started playing. Music started playing. They started singing. Jericho started trying to sing. MJF wasn't very good, but he was better than Jericho. The curtains behind their restaurant table opened up to reveal a dance floor, a ballroom. They had, 5 or 6 dancing girls. And they proceeded to do a duet mixed with ballroom dancing. And that's why I said Steve Lawrence and Edie Gourmet. I'm pretty sure this is their fucking song. I'm pretty sure when I was a kid, I saw them do this song on television. They were singing and dancing and doing customized verbiage for AEW. It wasn't the most offensive thing ever on television in wrestling TV. It wasn't as repugnantly offensive as the tooth and nail match, which beat football fuckery for the worst thing ever on a wrestling show. But that was for one reason, because the tooth and nail match was not only insulting to anybody who's ever been in the wrestling business, but it was poorly performed and shot worse. It looked like it was fucking recorded on somebody's phone and the participants were somaed. So, other than that, that's the reason why the tooth and nail thing was still more obnoxious and repugnant. This was actually shot better, but it was similar, very similar. And to me, watching this, it looked like 2 local news anchors that were doing a fucking song and dance routine on a local charity telethon, backed up by the cheerleading squad from Tits McGee Middle School. What the fuck? They finished this thing. Even the dancing girls were rotten. Did you notice they couldn't even figure out what they were doing? They should have had Sonny back there. See, he's a talent for something in wrestling. They even did a false finish on the song and Jericho was blown up. And then I really mean, and they go back into it again. Is this now supposed to be a sports-based musical variety program? Is that what it is? That's why I'm saying one segment, Eddie Kingston is cussing like a whore with crotch rot, swearing to kill people. And after the break, the two top heels in the company break into a song and dance, and the fucking stage and the dancing villagers appear like an episode of the 1967 Jackie Gleason show when the honeymooners went to Europe. And they won't even, these fucking people, they're like Trumpers. They're so fucking far up the ass, and they're so delusional, and they just can't admit that they were wrong, and they've been hornswoggled and taken for suckers and taken for a ride all along. There's people trying to say, well, it was entertaining. No, not in any way, shape, or form. It was insulting to wrestling. It diminished your capacity to do future business by not only making Jericho look even more stupid than he's already made himself look over the past several months, but now you've got MJF with shit all over his face, too. If you found entertainment in this, you might be one of those people that likes to have their fucking balls nailed to a step stool. And I don't know what to think about anybody anymore, but I will be less free and easy as I have been with my endorsements and accolades or allocades from this point forward. Just because I'm sure Jericho thought of this. Just because he thought, well, it would be funny. Just take your dick out, Chris, and just jack off on Tony Khan's face while he's there. Because you've just raped him and ripped him off of all this other money he spent on this fucking company that started out looking like you were going to carry it and now is looking like you're going to sink it.
He likes us just as much as these idiots like doing it.
That's what I'm saying. While he's at this, take his dick out of his pants, jack off on Tony Khan's face, and splooge in his eye. You're showing him, even if he's too stupid and immature and inexperienced and lost in the weeds as a goddamn wrestling observer, Mark, instead of a fan of wrestling, that he can't see, that he can't book, and he's wasting his father's money, and that this is all a goddamn variety of horse shit that's going to lead to nothing but wrestling never getting on national cable again for the next 20 years. Just because he can't realize that doesn't mean that Chris Jericho, who knows better, has to fucking splooge in his face, waste his money, and fucking make fun of his own fucking product at the same time while he's doing it. I feel sorry for Tony Khan when shit like this comes up on his television program.
I don't feel sorry for him at all. He's running his wrestling company the same way he runs his dad's football team and soccer team. It's just that wrestling fans, the super niche audience, are more forgiving because they like some of this stupid stuff. This is all Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho has some of the stupidest instincts in terms of entertainment of anyone in the history of the wrestling business. And his 2020 has been an embarrassment. And
remember when I said last year that this is the Jericho show and he's the star here and he will carry this and get it over if it's going to be got over? I apologize.
You know, you brought up Stephen Eady and Carol Burnett. Funny little fact. Stephen Eady and Carol Burnett lived on my family's block in Lido Beach.
What?
Yeah. I still have like a whole bunch of Stephen Eady autograph photos I used to give out.
But you were the one that would take them?
What a neighborhood I had. Stephen Eady and Carol Burnett, a few blocks over, the Rubens, Rick Rubens family. A few blocks over, Gambino. It was a great neighborhood to live in.
If Edie ever got with Gambino, she could have been Edie Gambino instead of Edie Gourmet. All right.
Well, you know, look.
That's a fun fact about Carol Burnett.
I have been a big fan of MJF. Unfortunately, I've been seeing that things are going in this direction for a few months now. Ever since that really awful campaign shit. Yeah. When they should have made him a serious heel going after Moxley. Look, I saw this ever since they threw him into the pool, which told me everything I needed to know about the way they're going to treat a guy who has the possibility to be an actual heel in a company with lots of smart fans who can get heat. That told me everything I need to know about the way they see this kid who has a world of potential.
The only thing that MJF needs to be the modern 21st century Roddy Piper is experience and learning how to take care of himself. And unfortunately, he's getting a crash course in how he shouldn't take care of himself. This is what not to do. So maybe if there is a wrestling business in 5 years and MJF does stick with it, he's learning now what not to do. Hopefully he'll get a second chance to be viewed and say, well, he's going to get a second chance to be seen by people, because I assume that all the AEW fans hate the WWE and they don't watch most of it. So if he's only being ruined in front of AEW fans who are not going to watch any real wrestling programs, then when he moves on to actually make money and become a star on a highly rated program, if it still exists by then, the WWE fans won't know that he's been goddamn one half of the fucking Rat Pack or whatever.
Chris Jericho is a major problem for professional wrestling right now in terms of wanting things to be serious and not just really stupid. And I know you've always been a defender of his, and I know
not
you can't,
anymore.
And I know you can't deny it anymore. You can't deny that it's a fact. He's proven it over and over again. You know, there's always been talented people in wrestling. By the way, I'm not including Chris Jericho in that list. But there's always been really talented people in professional wrestling. Guys who could sing or play guitar, guys who were funny in the back. Wrestling was never a talent show where whatever you could do, let's make sure we do a song and dance number. MJF is obviously a very talented guy. This was embarrassing. I was embarrassed watching it. And I know a lot of the younger fans will say, oh, but wrestling's supposed to be fun and silly. And hey, if that's what you like in wrestling.
Yeah, we covered that at the top of the program. Then what? Don't get mad when we laugh at you and tell you how stupid and silly you act.
This does nothing to get people who don't like this into the door. And, you know, it bothers me to critique someone like MJF, who I think is a world of talent. He's a fellow Jew from Long Island. But he is from Suffolk County, so maybe I feel all right about
I'm reaching across the aisle. I'm not even Jewish, but I liked him. I don't even know why I'm supposed to be mad at Jewish people. The only reason I'm mad at him now is because, goddamn it. And I know it's the first big contract he's had, and I know they're paying him a lot of money. Goddamn, sit down and say, no, for the sake of my career going forward, don't make me stupid like the rest of these people. I may be able to fucking help you one day.
You know what would help AEW right now? Fozzy going on tour. That would help AEW. Hey, Jim, real quick, let me read you a few comments that I got a kick out of. Because I'm trying to not take this too seriously, because why should I? They don't take it seriously. And I'm trying to laugh at the stupidity of this. So a few comments from the Mothership group that I got a kick out of. Lou Kippelman, superstar producer.
Kippelman!
On the network. It reminded me less of Frank and Sammy and more of the New Yorker staff Zoom call with Jeffrey Toobin. It was the first time I said to myself, you know what this segment needs? Brandy. Jericho revived that game show gimmick he had on ABC. He put MJF's promising career on a conveyor belt, taking a slow ride off the side of a tall building. How does self-consciously ironic shitty singing and dancing come across? Shitty. And really unfunny. And there's a few other. Can't wait for the eventual movie-length Rat Pack tribute, Cody and the Seven Marks, featuring songs by Sammy Kahn.
Oh, good old Sammy Kahn.
Scott Cornish said, I could see the headlines in a Simpson meme right now. Old man yells at production number, doesn't understand the wrestling has evolved. And finally, one more from Scott Cornish. The main problem with AEW wrestling, it's too choreographed. Again, trying to find some light in the awfulness and the horribleness that was this segment on AEW.
Well, I guess we've got as much to the bottom of that as we can get. It believe me, it was at the bottom. You gotta laugh. You can't. I mean, the horses left the barn, and the wrestling business is gone. And as I've said, I'm going to make it a point just because I can. And I despise all these people. I'm going to point out every time they suck and everything they do bad and everything they do, it's embarrassing. And every time they show that they're poorly trained and untalented and lacking in fucking determination, because they don't give a shit. So why should I? But so we will laugh at them and tell them that they're silly because that's what they're going for.
You always do the I told you so thing. When it comes to Chris Jericho, I told you so.
You told me so.
I told you so. He can't help himself. He truly believes he has good ideas. He can't help himself.
Help me.
He's not just drunk off the bubbly. He's drunk off his own ego, which needs to be put into check quickly. But anyway.
Fortunately, we get a little reprieve because next up was Dr. Britt Baker. And of course, we invoke the tooth and nail rule because that thing was so fucking bad on a major basis that we will not watch anything with Britt Baker, who we enjoyed, her pal Reba, who we enjoyed, or Big Swole, who nobody's ever enjoyed.
And for the record, we enjoyed their personalities.
Yes.
The AEW women's division is a disaster.
Well, no, I didn't enjoy their matches, but Britt Baker, we were getting a kick out of because she was really getting the heel thing down. But nevertheless, tooth and nail rule, cannot watch that. We skip ahead to another reason 647 why I don't like Darby Allin despite my best efforts. He runs me off every time. He's got charisma. He's athletic. He's way too small, but he makes it work for him. He's got the different weird vibe that the kids would like. And he's a complete blithering dipshit in real life. And every time I start liking him, they show another one of these videos. And well, this guy's just stupid. Steve-O. Not Steve Olsonowski, the Minnesota wrestler, but Steve-O, the idiot from Jackass. And by the way, just so I'll say this, just so everybody is reminded of it, I hate Steve-O, I hate Johnny Knoxville, I hate every single one of those stupid jackass idiots. It never was a show better named. Garbage, trashy people on fucking drugs with no jobs, kicking each other in the balls and videotaping it. Suddenly they get a movie and a television show. That's a classic example of failing your way to the top. I don't think these people should be rewarded or made over or complimented because that then spawns more of them. More stupid, idiot, freak, goofy white people that damage themselves for no reason, spray themselves in the face with mace, roll bowling balls into their nuts, whatever the case, just because they're stupid and they want to hoot. I never did that when I was a kid, never did it when I was a teenager, never did it when I was an adult, not unless it was a calculated risk that I was getting paid sums of money for. This idiot, Steve-O, introduces the other idiot, Darby Allin, does his promo for him. Darby Allin still speaks like 5 words in this whole thing and just lurks in the background to get ready for his big shot at the fucking TV title or the TNT title or the AEW title or whatever fucking title. Darby Allin is going to train himself by putting himself in a body bag, crawling up to the top of one of those skateboard ramps those stupid skateboard fucks jump off of. And he rolls himself in the body bag. Didn't roll, actually just rolled off the edge and dropped. What was the unearthly point of that? It didn't even look like a cool trick. He just fell off a fucking shelf. In a bag. I didn't know that it was possible to make professional wrestlers look any more stupid and ignorant to the general public. But this fucking clown has achieved it. I think he's so stupid. The reason why he only paints half his face is because he's so stupid he can't find the other half. What was this all about? And by the way, Steve-O, Jackass was on the air 20 years ago. Is he still a thing, a person? Or is this just them finding, like TNA would, some goof that used to be a celebrity and slipping him a couple of dollars because they think somebody will give a shit?
I don't know what Steve-O currently does. I mean, there are still a lot of people who remember Jackass. There were movies. It was big on MTV.
20 years ago.
It's been a while.
Wasn't Steve-O some kind of alcoholic and drug addict that went broke and blew all his money? Got weird tattoos, and said, well, I guess I'm just describing the entire AEW audience.
I think you may be right. I haven't really followed Steve-O's career too closely, I must admit. I can't tell you what the point of Darby doing all these videos. It's, the jumping off buildings and this and that.
It's getting him over as a wrestler.
Can you imagine if he broke his arm doing that?
Well, yeah, and I would fucking laugh my ass off. You know why? Because I don't wish misfortune on people that don't do stupid shit. There's all kinds of accidents that happen, and wrestling ain't ballet, and you can trip coming off the curb and get run over by a car these days. But to do this shit for nothing is beyond the pale stupid, and he deserves everything he gets. He put himself in a plastic body bag, rolled off about a 15-foot shelf and dropped to a wooden fucking ramp below, and then unzipped the bag, got out of it, and said, yeah, now I'm going to win the title. Yeah, the title of world's stupidest fucking human being. You human Q-tip. The fuck? Anyway, thanks for making wrestlers look really good on national television, you dimwit dipshit. But we're laughing. Do you have any show tunes we can say? Oklahoma, where the wind comes screaming down the plains, where the corn's as high as an elephant's eye. Was that Rodgers and Hammerstein?
I believe so.
All right.
They revived it a few years ago.
Cheated on Hammerstein with Hart, by the way, for a while. Remember that?
They revived that play on Broadway a few years back because I saw the commercials here in the local greater New York area.
Well, that's what whenever I've gone to Oklahoma, I've seen corn as high as an elephant's eye.
Oh, what a beautiful morning. See, I gave you a little bit of singing.
Can you sing Far, Far Away?
I will not. I'm not saying if I can or can't, but I will not.
All right, we got good news coming up. Two pieces of good news. Number one, we're almost done with this show. And number two, thank glory, hallelujah, the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker are back together again, baby. Eddie Kingston, the romanticist that he is, has taken the bunny back from QT Marshall and given her back to the fishmonger and the meat gentleman, where she belongs. What the let me make sure I got this right. The butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker, Bunny was their mascot / valet / whatever they call him these days, until suddenly she disappeared without any mention and became QT Marshall's girlfriend over on their YouTube program that even fewer people watch.
And tag team partners with Brandy.
And tag team partners with Brandy as baby faces. And then, now she's back. And we never, on this TV program, they explained it, but we never really saw her with QT on this television program. Except when they showed her leaving him to come back to where she was on the program before. Oh, fucking hell. So, the fishmonger and the meat gentleman with Bunny are in a 4-team match versus Private Party versus Dork Order versus Balding Buck and his brother Buck Hogan. Oh, Buck. In another 4-way, at least 3 of the entrances were in the break, and we got to see Butcher, Baker, and Candlestick Maker, the big reunion. This was the main event. Winner gets a title match against FTR. I wrote I couldn't possibly give a shit about this match or anything that might happen. I was about to fast forward it, but FTR was on commentary, so I decided I'd leave it on to hear them. And this was where I had my final epiphany, Brian. You know what epiphany is, don't you?
I certainly do.
I'm going to tell you exactly what it is, because I'm going to read it right here from the good old American Heritage Dictionary. See, it's made in America, so you know it's good. Epiphany, I'm skipping over episcopal, definitely skipping over episiotomy, which is a surgical incision of the perineum during childbirth. That's the taint, right? The episiotomy, you don't want that. But where is epiphany? Epistle. Epiphany, there we are. a revelatory manifestation, especially of a divine being. Well, this wasn't a divine being, but this was an epiphany. We've had it all wrong, Brian. AEW isn't paying Uncle Dave to be their personal PR guy. He's paying them.
Oh, come on.
He's paying them so many mentions. What would it cost to get your name and your publication and your awards and everything multiple times on TNT, on national television? The Wrestling Observer newsletter has become the Fox News of AEW. They're mentioning his name over and over again. They're mentioning his publication. They're mentioning his awards. The young fucks named a move after him. FTR is dropping his name multiple times. Hey, just because Dave Meltzer gives you 7 stars, Bucks, doesn't mean you can beat everything's about. Dave's paying them. He's made all that money throughout his life by never actually having any fun. And now he's saved it all up and he's fucking paying them to put his shit over on their program. This I can believe now. I never thought that he would take the money from them to abandon his principles. I see that instead, he's been giving them money and they have no principles. So that's the way it makes sense. While this match was going on, and they were doing all the things that all these teams normally do, FTR were the most polite baby faces I've ever heard on commentary. These are quotes. They're proud to be AEW Tag Team Champions. There's some great teams here in AEW. We respect so-and-so in AEW. Tully was not there with them. Angle alert. So you've got FTR, the heel team champions, out there putting everybody over as how great they are and talking about how Dave Meltzer rewards the Young Bucks with all these stars. The Young Bucks, for the past several weeks, have been trying to convince us that they're heels, but they're hopelessly inept at that like everything else. Several of the guys in this 4-way match could have gone to the Olympics. I believe that firmly. In gymnastics, possibly the uneven parallel bars. There wasn't a goddamn wrestler in this fucking bunch. It got way into ridiculous over and over with all these teams doing what you think that all these teams would do. And finally, the Young Fucks beat Private Party. Wouldn't you know who won the pony? The Young Fucks finally get this long-awaited match against FTR. The Young Bucks versus FTR, what, a year and a half ago would have been the absolute hottest match that you could put together outside of the WWE as in the tag team ranks. Would you concur with that?
Absolutely, yeah.
Now nobody gives a shit. Now that they've actually made it, now that they have seen how that the Young Bucks have been just annoying human beings on this program and couldn't even figure out how to be baby faces so that the heels could come in and be heels. The heels come in to be heels, and the baby faces switch heel at the same time, so the heels have to be baby faces, except when they do an angle. And this has been made such a silly rivalry with all the other goofy teams involved and all the other stupid shit that they did with ice coolers and fucking, I don't know, itching powder, whatever all that shit has been. After Balding and his brother Buck Hogan beat Private Party, then FTR come in and offer them beers. They refuse. And suddenly a masked timekeeper comes in with a chair, and you see old Road Warrior, sorry, that name is retired. You see old Buck Hogan flinch about a second before it lands. He knew it was coming. And of course it's Tully. But then suddenly FTR are the heels again and the Bucks are the baby faces, even though the Bucks have been acting like pricks for 6 weeks. And FTR was just offering them beers and praising all these other teams and talking so politely. But now they're beating up the Bucks and nobody tries to help. Nobody comes out. Nobody tries to intervene. It just goes on until FTR's finished with it. Actually, until my DVR froze up. Was there any save after that, or did you see anything?
Not any save that I saw. It seemed like it was hard, even though they were beating down the Bucks, for them to stay down and sell. Even after they took out, even after they took out Dick the Buck's leg, he was still fighting, trying to get up.
Buck Lesowski.
You missed the biggest thing that happened during the match. Did you fast forward the match?
I just zoned out on it because it was the same guys doing the same indie bullshit that they usually do. So it was on, but I wasn't paying a lot of close attention.
Do you still have it on your DVR?
Probably not. Why? I know I definitely, as soon as the thing was over with, I disposed of it because I was afraid that I might accidentally see the steak dinner segment again.
The Dark Order guy with the hair, I think that's Reynolds, gets knocked out cold in the middle of the match when Private Party hit a double team move where I think they both came off different turnbuckles and hit him from both sides.
I saw that, but no, he was just selling like nobody.
No, he was knocked out.
Because they just drug him over and tagged him and left him laying there in a comedy spot selling knocked out. He couldn't have really been knocked out.
No, he was really knocked out.
Are you fucking ribbing me?
And that's their concussion protocol, by the way, after the Matt Hardy incident. The referee didn't have any. That referee is clueless to begin with.
There was no. The reanimated corpse, Rick Knox.
Yeah,
There was no signal that whether you could see it or not see it. Nobody was signaling. I thought it was so funny that they just drugged the guy over while he didn't move and was motionless and tagged him and then left him laying there while they started doing other shit. I thought that was one of their comedy spots.
Oh no,
I didn't know that he was really knocked out and nobody gave a fuck.
He was out cold, and they dragged him to the corner to have him make a tag, and then eventually someone checked on him. But he's in the ring, knocked out. All this stuff's happening. No one does anything. No one from the back notices. I noticed right away at home. Other people on Twitter noticed. They didn't send anyone into the ring to check on him for a few minutes. Took a while. Eventually, they start doing spots with him again, and he's clearly lagging. He's clearly a step behind. He can't do it. AEW has a real problem dealing with concussions.
I said, there's no way. Because I was hot that now they fucking hit the double team on the guy, and now you're just laying there, and it's got to be funny there, too. They just were so unprofessional, uncoordinated, unprepared, inexperienced, and stupid that not only they keep knocking all their fucking wrestlers out because none of them can work and they try too much stupid shit, but then when one of them does get brain damage, they just fucking do the goddamn dance routine around him. Well, that's good. That's good to know.
So I brought that up because earlier in the show, you were bringing up the different things that happen on AEW. We didn't just get a song and dance routine. We also got 2 injuries in matches. Phoenix landed on his head and this other guy got knocked out by Private Party. Imagine if he had a broken neck. They just dragged him to the corner. They didn't know what his condition was.
I'm going to say one more thing. Remember when it was on the drive-through this past week, I believe we talked about our hectic schedule in the territory days. I ran over 2 weeks of a Mid-South schedule, but guys in the car every day, working every night, 2 shows on Sunday, TV tapings, double shots, whatever the fuck. I managed the tag team champions, the top heel tag team, in one of the most physical territories in the business, Mid-South Wrestling, where for a year with almost no days off, wrestling a minimum of 8 to 9 matches a week when you counted TV tapings. I don't remember one time in that year that Bobby Eaton or Dennis Condrey, either one, were ever knocked out or hit in the head so hard that they didn't know what they were doing. And here, with these fucking children doing all this horse shit, it happens every week multiple times on live television.
And that referee, again, he doesn't just do a bad job of getting the guys to get out of the ring or...
He does no job.
He does nothing. The guy's there. He's clearly messed up. And the referee doesn't even do anything. Just awful across the board.
All right, I'm going to say one more thing. We've added now musical numbers. Breaking into song is another rule.
Yeah,
so
but...
no teleportation, no invisible men, no supernatural powers, no tooth and nail, no what...
Well, we don't know when they're going to break into song. It just happened all of a sudden.
As soon as they do it, from now on, as soon as they do it, that's an instant fast forward, like teleportation and these other things. We can't. No, if they're not going to even try, then we're not going to give them the fucking benefit that we give them of bringing a couple 100,000 people to their fucking show to see if it's really as fucking hokey as we say it is.
Jericho's singing for his little band for like 20 years now. MJF's a better singer than him. How about that? How about that?
He was better when he was on Rosie O'Donnell singing You Are My Sunshine.
Hey, you want the ratings?
I was about to say, before we go, did anybody watch either one of these shows? I feel so sorry for the American public.
Fortunately for the American public, there was a lot of news happening, so the ratings aren't as high as they have been recently for AEW because so many people are watching news programs. The ratings, NXT 644, right in that range they've been at the last several weeks.
Wait a minute. AEW, hold on.
No, NXT was say 644.
Yes, and no, that's why I'm saying you gave me NXT. Yes. I'm going to say AEW was between 744 and 794. That's 150,000 people difference, just like they do every week.
753.
There you go. 109,000 people.
That's tied with 2 weeks ago as their lowest number in a couple months, which is probably good considering some of the crap that was on this show.
Well, but see, here's the thing. I know there was competition, but generally, follow me when I say this. When you have a bad number, a bad rating, it's most probably, to me, related to the stinky show you did last week. And when you do a good rating, it's probably due more to the good show you did last week. Because how do they know that a good show is going to be good until they've watched it? How do you know a stinky show? Same thing. So last week, they had a stinker. Cody and Pockets, 20 minutes, Broadway, against all his other stuff. So now they're down. And NXT does the same thing all the time.
You know what, though? I think it's almost the opposite. I think Orange Cassidy means something to their audience because 3 weeks ago on the 7th, it was the same number it was yesterday, 753. Last week was 826. So last week was the bump. I know they had a lot of competition, like you said, but they've had a lot of competition really the last few weeks.
Well,
but this week and 2 weeks ago matched. It was last week that was the higher episode.
So Pockets means something to somebody. Well, as they say, sooner or later, even a blind squirrel will find a nut. Have you gotten your nut yet, Brian?
I don't know how to answer that.
So then we'll just leave it there. Are we ready to say goodbye? Good night?
We're ready
long?
To bust
farewell?
the nut?
Ready to bust it out of here, baby. Busting out of L7. And as we now know, steak and cocaine are a hell of a drug. Anyway.
Oh, man, you know what? The Always Sunny list, I left off the one where Mac wins the contest to shoot the puck at the hockey game. That's another one of my favorites.
Well, we'll shoot that puck next week when we come back and talk about even more of this stuff. Next week on the drive-thru, comes out Tuesday instead of Monday, we're going to review the Hells in a Cell, Rage in a Cage, Hell in a Cell, Fox in a Box, whatever the fuck. And next week here on the program, even more of this falderall and possibly some Gershwin tunes. You know what? That's what we need to get. Einar, Rocky, Ramon, we need to get some of those people. We need some big band stuff. If wrestling is going to go to more of a big band ballroom type dancing look, we've got to keep up on the music.
No, there's a difference between show tunes and big band.
Show tunes, big band, I don't care, Broadway, whatever the case may be. Folks, I don't blame you if you just don't ever watch any more wrestling again, because, I mean, we've seen it's as good as it's been as good as it's ever going to be, and it's just getting worse all the time. So with that, sort of like this program, I'll close for now. Until next week or on the drive-thru or whenever you see us again, thank you, fuck you, and bye-bye, everybody. God, I gotta piss.